All right, floor is yours, Jim. All set.
Thank you, Heather. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this public hearing before the Henrietta Town Planning Board on Tuesday, May 18th, 2021. We're here to discuss application number PB 327, York subdivision for preliminary subdivision approval of a 4-lot residential subdivision on 1.87 acres of property located on Jefferson Road. Will the secretary please take the roll?
Walter Liss.
Here.
Craig Eckert. Rick Page.
Here.
Patricia Brill.
Here.
Stephen McIntyre.
Here.
Matthew Burkowski. James Grunert, Chair.
Here. Thank you, Becky. So a public hearing is being held again before the Henrietta Planning Board today, Tuesday, May 18th, 2021 at 7 p.m. in the main meeting room, 475 Calkins Road, Henrietta, New York, to hear all persons with regard to the following application. Again, PB 327 York subdivision, preliminary subdivision approval of a 4-lot residential subdivision on 1.87 acres of property located on Jefferson Road in an R120 zoned district. This public hearing is being held so that you, the general public, can present your opinions to the Henrietta Planning Board regarding subdivision concerns specifically limited to the following: trees, the lots themselves, open space, the infrastructure, utilities, sidewalks, and flood-prone areas. May I ask who is here representing the applicant on application number PB 327, please?
Matt Newcomb with Passrow Associates.
Hi, Matt. What was your last name again? I'm sorry.
Newcomb?
Newcomb, thank you.
UCOMB.
Yes, correct.
Very good. Matt, are you prepared to begin?
Sure. So yeah, my name is Matt Newcomb. I'm with Passrow Associates here tonight on behalf of our client, York Properties, presenting a project as you mentioned on the south side of West Jefferson Road. The parcel is adjacent to New Tudor Road, which is to the east of the proposed development. And the access for the proposed development will be right off of Jefferson Road. As you mentioned, we're proposing a 4-lot subdivision on a 1.87 acre parcel. The parcel is zoned R120. The minimum lot size is about 20,000 square feet. We're able to accomplish 4 lots with that lot size. Oh, there we go. So we have 4 lots that we're proposing off of a private drive that again has access off of West Henrietta Road. The first lot that is adjacent to West Jefferson Road requires a 60-foot front setback from a state road. The other ones will be set back off of the private drive. Again, utilities, we're proposing a sanitary sewer extension from New Tudor Road over to the development to service sanitary. Water is available on Jefferson Road, as well as electric and gas. The proposed development is about, again, 1.87 acres in size, which doesn't meet the requirements of having to go through a stormwater pollution prevention plan and provide stormwater treatment and runoff reduction volume and water quality volume. So that's about the gist of what's going on here. If there's any questions, feel free to ask me, and I'm sure I can provide an answer.
All right, thank you, Matt, very much. We do have a room full of residents here, and so I'd like to open it up to any residents that may have some comments or questions. I will ask you to please come up to the microphone, state your name, and then make your comment or ask your question. And if there's people online, we will get to you. And if there's people in the hallway also, just notify us and we can also bring you up at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Heather, this is Patty. I want to ask a question first. Do we need all the, everybody that's present to fill out one of the forms this evening?
Yes, please.
I have a copy of my comments for when I'm finished. I'm Larry Anderson. I'm president of the Jefferson Estates Open Space Association. I live at 124 Churchview Lane, Pittsford, New York. I'm here tonight along with a number of our neighbors because we have some serious concerns about this proposed subdivision as it has been proposed. We have a number of questions, and I don't know how the developer might answer them tonight or whatever. I can pose my questions, my concerns, and see how you want to go from there.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. As long as the questions pertain to the trees, the lots themselves, the open space, the infrastructure, the utilities, the sidewalks, and the flood-prone areas, okay?
Yes, yes.
So,
That's
yep.
that's what I'm addressing.
Very good.
The Open Space Association that owns the property that is adjacent on the west side of this property. And I'm also speaking on behalf of my other neighbors who live on New Tudor as well. We are interested in knowing what the applicant experience is in home building. And we're interested in the price range that they're planning on offering these homes. It is, as I understand, going to be a private road that will entail then that the residents of the subdivision need to maintain that road in terms of snow plowing and repairs in the out years, whatever. So we'd like to understand what kind of homes are planning to be built. We understand they're looking to be 1,500 square foot. So we have questions around that. Next question has to do with, has there been input from New York State DOT regarding a road cut and traffic concerns on Jefferson Road? I know DOT does not like to approve new road cuts that don't connect with something else. So that's one issue. Has the fire marshal reviewed and approved this plan without turnaround access? There's no provision for turnaround access for roads that are longer than 150 feet. And that's per the New York State Fire Code. In addition, these roads and driveways and rooftops and all will increase the impervious surfaces available in the area and will increase the runoff into the surrounding properties. We have concerns because our drainage maps show that there are 4 properties currently on New Tudor Road that are in the wetlands. They have existing drainage issues. The town has worked to correct that some in past years. It has not been completely corrected, and we feel that this particular development will add to that. And we have an engineer who has reviewed the plans, and they have told us that they also believe that the drainage plan is inadequate according to the proposal that's before you tonight. Other question, how will the Jefferson Estates open space parcel number 4, it's indicated on the map, be protected from the impact of the extensive tree removal and the addition of new impervious surfaces that change the water table and endanger those trees and create an additional expense and liability for our association should they have to be removed? We have had experience with this in other areas of our neighborhood, and a number of trees have had to be removed because there's been a change in the water table. So we're interested in knowing what mitigation measures will be put in place.
Thank you. I think,
could I just?
I'm sorry.
I just have a couple of recommendations, if I could add to that. First of all, we would like any and all of you to come visit. Come walk in our backyards, come see what we're talking about. I think you can look at maps, you can look at elevation, you can all kinds of things, but until you actually walk the property, you cannot really understand the existing wet conditions that are back there and the danger that it puts these homes in if this plan goes through. So one of the things that we are suggesting, we're real concerned about the number of trees that are going to be taken down. Wondering, could this proposal be flipped so that the houses were on the west side of the property And the roadway then lined up with Samantz's Way across Jefferson Road. That would, I think, be attractive to DOT as they review all of this. Again, we want, as part of this, for you to require a drainage plan that would remedy the current wet conditions for those homes in new tutors and certainly prevent any increase in the drainage issues. Minimizing the tree removal to the greatest extent possible will also preserve the surrounding trees and continue to serve as a barrier to the noise of the Jefferson Road traffic. So that's another part of it. We're anxious to work with you. We'd like to sit down if possible and talk about solutions, but we definitely would like you to come visit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I think a couple of the things that you mentioned that fall into the purview of the public hearing are the trees and the flood-prone areas. So Matt, if you can address right now for the audience your comments regarding the drainage issues, the buffering, you're maintaining a tree line, and then maybe address the size of the lots. I think she brought that up as well. Can you do that?
Yes, so the intent is to maintain as many existing trees as possible. Obviously, there's some clearing that has to be done to make the development work. But our intent is not to remove any trees that we don't have to, but also need to make sure that, you know, everything functions properly for the development, and we need to take out what we need to take out in order to make that happen. So again, our goal is to minimize and mitigate any tree removal that we possibly can as part of the development. The flood prone areas, you know, basically the existing topography, we're not changing significantly. The existing topography as it is currently and what we're proposing is very similar. As far as a runoff from the new pervious areas, we're well within the restrictions and requirements of the New York State DEC and the town of Henrietta's requirements, where 5 acres is required to provide stormwater runoff and stormwater mitigation. So, you know, we're complying with all the requirements of the town as well as the New York State DEC in that regard. As far as the lot sizes go, all the lots comply with the R120 zone bulk area requirements. They all meet the minimum lot size, and some are slightly larger. The building footprints or the house footprints are 1,500 square foot. That is correct. Some of these could potentially be ranch style 1-story homes. Some of them could be 2-story colonial. It's kind of undetermined yet what exactly they're going to look like. But given the nature of the area where there's single family residential homes that surround this proposed development, it will certainly complement the character of the existing neighborhood.
What about their thought of flipping? And I'm not an engineer, of course, but would that be an option at all?
We did look at that, and there's a couple of things that we took into account as the reason why we oriented the parcel the way that we did. When one was the sewer distance from New Tudor Road. We're fighting grade on that, so we're trying to keep it as minimal as possible. And the other reason being is grading. We're trying to minimize the changes in grade to the area. Obviously, you know, there's some concerns with flooding, so we're trying to do our best to mitigate that. And the best way to do that is to try to keep it as close to existing, and that's kind of what we're doing with the current layout.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Ma'am?
Sure.
Hi, my name is Renee Schulz Jacobson. I live at 78 New Tudor Road. And I have a couple of concerns. I'm glad that Lori spoke on behalf of the association. I have a couple of concerns. I'm at I'm at 78, so I think that's lot 345 or something like that. And so for my purposes, this winter, someone went back there and marked off with pinkish ribbons, hot pink ribbons in the backyard. And I didn't really know what was going on, but I went, you know, I wonder what's going on back there. I didn't know if someone was going to be hunting or whatever. So I've watched all winter. I can see these hot pink flags that are around the trees. And then as this became clear, I went, oh, that's where they're intending to fell some trees. You know, that's the beginning of the property. So I went to look at this, and my questions are specifically about setbacks. The numbers are so tiny that we've been provided. I can't actually read the proposed setbacks that they're talking about from the tree line. So what is the distance? I want to understand the trees that are coming down because I can see the flags. And from my backyard, one of my concerns has to do with, there's a habitat back there. There are deer that give birth in my backyard. I watch them every year. There are pheasants, there are fox, there are birds. And when that's gone, not only, you know, is that a problem for the wildlife, but also, as Lori mentioned, we can already hear road noise right now in our backyard, but it's mitigated because you can hear the birds, you know, they're closer because of the tree line. And from you know, obviously there's an environmental standpoint, but on a purely selfish standpoint, you know, I paid a fair change for my beautiful home, and resale is greatly affected when you can hear road noise. In fact, I moved from a street where there was a lot of road noise, and I specifically picked this lot because it was wooded, and I had no idea there was, you know, going to potentially ever be development there, because on my deed it says Forever Wild, and I thought forever meant forever, but it doesn't. So my questions are about the setbacks, number one. The other has to do with lighting, because right now it's very dark back there. Obviously, it's an empty field. So my question has to do with what kind of lights are going to be up there, because that also affects the environment, the habitat, the animals, and also me, you know, my view at night. So what will we be seeing in terms of lighting at night? And I think that's noise, habitat, and really I am concerned about the setback. And as far as propositions go, Lori mentioned to me on the telephone the other day, the idea of flipping it. I'm not a big proponent of that because that really puts the road in the backyard. But my question is, you know, I understand this is preliminary, like this has not been approved, or what does this mean? I mean, they're asking for this site and it could be rejected completely, or it could be accepted in some modified way. I just don't understand
It
where
has
we are.
not formally been approved.
Okay,
Correct.
so it's not like the one down the road where it was approved and, you know, I mean, this is still
Correct.
happening. Okay.
Correct.
So my question was, would it be possible, given the concerns about drainage and all of these things, would it be, they're proposing 4 lots right now. Could it be possible to put fewer houses, perhaps 3? I mean, if it's going to be approved, my question is, could there be 3 lots rather than 4? So we'd have increased setbacks and less drainage and less roofs and all of those kinds of things with more trees and less, you know.
Well, that's why you folks are here tonight.
Right.
You're here to help educate us. We have not voted on anything yet.
Right.
And so that's why we're taking what you folks are bringing to us tonight and will be considered when this formally comes before us for a vote.
Perfect.
So you know, what you're saying tonight is very important to us.
Thank you. I wasn't sure where it was in the process. The last time I was here was for the Dunwood thing, and that was already purchased, and we didn't really have I wasn't here at that point, you know, so I was curious. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Matt, can you comment please on the setbacks?
Yeah, so the flags that you're seeing are likely property boundary flags. So those delineate the property boundary, the overall property boundary. So they're not delineating any setbacks or house corners or anything. We had to complete a boundary survey as part of the process. So that's what you're seeing. As far as the setback goes, off of the homes on New Tudor Road, they're anywhere between 75 and 80 feet. Again, this gets more refined as we have a particular home that we're going to put there, a custom, you know, they're not all going to be rectangles. We show them preliminarily as rectangles. So the setbacks from the rear are about 80 feet, which is far in advance or far bigger than what the town requires for a rear setback, which is 10 feet. The town requires a rear setback of 10 feet and a side setback of 8 feet. So these are significantly further away than what is allowed by the town.
Can you just say those numbers again? Because I can't read them. I see that it's something that says like required and then proposed, but it's not readable. Can you just say what those numbers are again?
Yes, so The required, which is what the town code allows you to, the minimum the town code allows you to do for a rear setback, and that is 10 feet. And our closest one, which will be the one that's on off of Jefferson Road, is 57 feet from the corner, but a majority of the other homes are going to be about 80 feet from the rear property line. Again, don't quote me on exact numbers because those could be a plus or minus 5 feet, depends on what type of home goes there, but they'll certainly be within the allowed setbacks within the zoning code for this district.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding you. You said that this is what I looked at. It says required is 10 feet, and you're saying you're going to have 8 feet or possibly 7 feet. So how is,
No.
what am I missing?
So the rear setback, the minimum setback, meaning the closest it can be to any of the homes on New Tudor Road, is 10 feet. So we could potentially put a home 10 feet off of the homes on New Tudor Road. What we are proposing is approximately 80 feet, plus or minus, with the exception of the one that's on West Jefferson Road, it's about 57 feet. So we're much further away from your homes on New Tudor Road than what the town allows under the code for this zoning district, which this property is within.
And lighting?
Lighting. So the lighting will be very similar to any lighting that you have on your home, typical residential lights, whether they're on a garage or on the front of the house. There may be a pole light in the front, a small residential pole light, but there's no significant lighting back there.
And no streetlights, Matt?
No street lights, nope.
Thank you.
If you are going to take trees down, are you willing to replace or put up some other ones? So for greater coverage to placate the neighbors?
Again, our goal is to try to minimize the amount of trees we take down, because obviously not only does it help your property and your screening that you would like to see, but it also helps, the properties and the people that purchase these is to have nicely wooded lots. So our intent is to minimize the number of trees that we have to take down, but we still have to make sure that everything is draining properly and the sanitary sewer can access each one of the properties, and water and the roadway, et cetera.
Thank you.
And that's something this board looks at a lot, screening and berming and those types of things. We're very sensitive to those types of things, so we'll take that into consideration. Anyone else would like to speak? Yes.
32 New Tudor Road.
Wait till we get to the microphone, please.
32 New Tudor Road. Last name is Nuss, N-U-S-S. I want a little bit of a history lesson here. Off Jefferson Road, people fought when the 16 fourplex buildings were put on the north side of Jefferson Road. People from Locust Hill Drive and Edgewood both fought very hard to not have that go in because it was 26 acres and all of those buildings were put in and the traffic on Jefferson was already bad. And the state said, we will not put a red light at Edgewood because the road narrows and traffic is terrible. It's terrible getting on and off Locust Hill. It's terrible getting on and off New Tudor Road because it narrows, the speed limit is higher, and the traffic is a mess. So I don't want anything else going out in there. The other thing I want to talk to you about is when I bought my lot, and I was one of the first lots in there, my house was built in '98. I purposely chose that lot because behind me on Mr. York's property was wetlands, and it was designated as so on the town maps. Therefore, I thought, well, even though it's open land behind my property, to the right behind my property is wetlands. No one can build on wetlands. Since then, I have found the town went in and blew up off of Stone Road a beaver dam, because when the beaver put their dam up, it flooded back in there behind what used to be the Carmelite Mission, and the houses on the south side of Stone Road, the basements were flooding. So that's how they got away with it. We did away with that, so now they can keep the water level down. They've done something on that land because my yard has the swale, and I put a surface drain in there. So I've never had trouble up by my house. I don't know what they've done up there, but walking out my back door now is like a sponge, and it is still like that if you'd like to come and slush around with me. and that's up against my house. When the builder, Mark IV, was asked to put in a French drain behind my property because you couldn't walk up the hill because it was wet behind my property without sinking, he put in a French drain that went not downhill, which would have been to the south, but to the north. I finally figured out why. Between my property, 32 and 28, when I had to pull a tree out because it wasn't surviving, I found out there's running water under there. It was coming from the wetland. It was a natural drainage area. When they built the cellar in my house, my mother went every day. I went when I could. The guy did not dig my cellar as deep because he hit a spring. There were 2 natural bogs in Jefferson Estates that were destroyed by the builder. They filled one in. It's right behind Rush Henrietta's pump station. That brings me to the sewer. The sewer line goes up to Jefferson Road. They're pumping uphill. You're going to add more stress to that? There are Rush Henrietta trucks at that pump station all the time. I suggest you need a total environmental study. You need to do something saying that was wetland. What are we going to do? I purposely bought, if you don't believe me, across from my house, and I showed it to some of the people that were on the board originally in Jefferson Estates. They actually put a pipe underneath the road, and I bet you don't have that on any of your maps, because there was enough water that there's a pipe under New Tudor Road that goes across into the wetlands across from my house. So I would suggest you think very carefully, because also on Jefferson Road on the north side, there's a stream that runs directly up against Jefferson Road and stops. It comes out as a spring behind the first or second or third house. Mr. Page saw it, where it comes up when there's water. And one reason the swale was built. Well, the town was smart enough to put the swale, or by the way, down where you have the cistern at the bottom of the hill, there were ducks swimming originally. I mean, actual ducks in Mr. Smith's backyard. So I suggest you seriously ask Mr. York to leave the wetlands, or what was originally said were wetlands. I know the federal government's changed. Wetlands have to be something now that drains into something else. Well, I'm saying here and now, those wetlands, when there was a huge storm and lightning, I had a big tree. Lightning likes tall things and water. The only tree that got it was mine. And it went right where I'm telling you that water runs underground between 32 and 28. And there is a pipe that goes across the road. So I suggest you think long and hard before you approve this development. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak?
Hi, good evening. My name is Gary Casera. I'm at 149 New Tudor. Just a couple of quick questions. Are there any variances required at all for this development? Any at all? Does the developer have any, made any points where he's going to ask for a variance of any kind?
No, there are no variances required for this project.
Okay. The other concern that was brought up earlier, I want to focus in on a little bit. And I haven't seen a drainage plan. I don't know how you're dealing with the storm water. I know the town has to go through that with the engineers and so forth. But it's been brought up. There are some really important impervious drain issues in this area. So I live at 149 and it's wet behind us. There's a creek bed back there. The town has improved the creek bed, but there's a lot of standing water that moves back there. And I do know that the pond for Jefferson Estates is that many times it's overloaded not only with water, but cattails, so there are other issues. Is there a retention pond or detention pond on this parcel?
There's not a retention or detention pond proposed for this project.
So everything's going to be piped off the property?
Correct.
And has the town looked at the studies on the amount of impervious water? Have they studied that yet, just to give us an indication what the impact that is in the surrounding properties?
Yeah, I can answer that question.
Yeah.
My name is Chris Martin. I'm the Director of Engineering and Planning for the town. And no, we have not received any type of drainage report or something like that.
Okay.
However, drainage is a concern of ours. So even though it doesn't meet the DEC requirements, the town has their own requirements.
Okay,
And one of the things that we've asked the developer to do in our comments was to put in some type of stormwater management facility.
okay,
We know there's problems back there, and, you know, certainly we don't want to create any, or for there to be any additional problems to the surrounding neighbors. So yes, they're going to have to put some type of stormwater management facility that we're going to have to review and approve.
okay. And then the other point I had was, and I think it was talked about very briefly, but if there was any way, even if you keep the roadway the way it is, to align that with the greens so that at least the roads were opposite each other. And I don't know how that impacts your front parcel and the setbacks and right-of-ways, but it seems to me from the point of traffic movement, it'd be more ideal if the roads could be opposite each other. And then finally, very quickly, if the developer would meet with Jefferson Estates to walk the property, you know, and maybe hear our concerns, this would be a much smoother transition in getting approvals if it meets all the requirements the town has or will be setting for it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Patty, have you gotten the names of everybody? I'm just acting on behalf of Heather,
Barry, can you
but I want to
spell
make sure
your
you've
last name for me,
gotten
please?
Yeah.
all the speakers' names
Cassara, Gary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
and the two women prior to her. Did you get those, Patty?
Renee Jacobson, Lynn Nuss, and if you would be kind enough to repeat your name for me, please?
Laurie Anderson,
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Laurie.
Lorre.
Thank you. At what
Thank
house
you.
number?
124 Churchview Lane.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Yes, sir.
It's Howard Merzel, M-E-R-Z-E-L, 82 New Tudor.
Say that again.
82,
Last name?
M-E-R-Z-E-L.
Rizal.
Thank you. I'm coming late to the party. I apologize. I'm wondering if somebody could offer me a history story behind the wetland property that sits behind my home, as I thought it was Forever Wild originally, and I wanted to know how this parcel became available and why it would be developed as a detraction, I think, to the natural beauty of the town itself.
I don't know what the history is. We got a nice little history lesson from where'd she go? She actually did some research and all that, but you know, specifically your address and what's behind it, I'm not sure. Chris, are you familiar with it at all? What?
Yeah, I think when Jefferson Estates initially came in, yeah, there are some wetlands or wet areas back there. But the parcel that we're looking at right now, if you go to the wetland mapper that we get from the state and also from the Army Corps of Engineers, it doesn't show a wetland on that property. Now, the land could be wet, but right now it does not show a wetland there. So I can't tell you what happened from way before till now. You know, maybe something changed with the DEC or the federal requirements.
And
But we're looking at the current wetland map now. I can't go what was done in 98. I have to go with what the DEC and the Army Corps is showing us right now.
Which is why I told you the federal didn't change, but there is
Right.
a pathway to water that it can run directly into our pond to bring out into wetlands on the road because of that pond.
Yeah, and we can certainly research this. This isn't something that's going to be done right away, but you know, now that we know what some of the concerns are, yes, we can look at it and have a better answer for you.
obviously, my main concern is the lighting, acoustical, and visual barrier that the natural wetlands provides my back property from Jefferson Road. And when you go and develop that 4 lots, all of that seems lost to me. And so I'm wondering if I heard correctly, you're talking about an 80-foot setback from the southwest corner of that development from the back end of my property line? Is that
We
correct?
had to ask the developer that, or the applicant's engineer on that one.
Yeah, I'm not, I don't know what exactly house you are. It's difficult for me to know that. If I search your house, it doesn't show that 85 New Tudor Road actually backs up to this development or the open space area. So it's just unclear for me as to which house is actually yours.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you
I'm
say
number 82.
82? Yeah.
Okay.
82, okay.
And that
So
does,
82 actually backs up to that open space area for Jefferson Reserve. It does not border our property or the proposed development.
Again, my concern would still be around changing the natural landscape, the environment for the birds and animals that exist there already, including deer, fox, rabbits, brown bats even I've seen. And in addition, losing the natural barrier that it provides me to a main thoroughfare and obviously is a detriment to my property value. So I just wanted to raise that point.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Jim, I do have a few people online when you're ready for some online comments.
Okay, great, Heather, thank you.
My name is June Sosland. I live at 88 New Tudor Road in Pittsburgh. When I bought my property a few years ago, I bought it because of the Forever Wild that's in my deed and was told to me by the realtor and whatever. I don't understand how Forever Wild becomes non-existent. You know, I don't understand how what was Forever Wild in the deed now becomes a subdivision. So I'd like that information. You know, I'm with the other neighbors here we see deer and all sorts of animals. I walk in those woods with my grandson who's 7 years old and he comes to visit every week. It's always wet. No matter how hot it is in the heat of the summer, when it's dry, it is wet back there. It is, and my backyard that is somewhat up on the hill a little bit is always soggy after a rain. Not a downpour, but a rain. So I can't imagine putting 4 houses back there and what that's going to do to the backyard. The other thing that I'm concerned about is, you know, we have an ash tree blight. And there are many, many ash trees back there. They're going to go eventually. And then with the subdivision, we're going to have more trees come down. So it's not just what they're going to be doing, but it's also what nature is doing to that back. No trees, more flooding, obviously. So I guess there's no answer from anybody today about what happened to Forever Wild.
Which parcel do you back, what's your address again, ma'am?
88.
So you're probably around the bend then?
I'm in the flag lot.
Okay. So
I'm in the
you
flag
still
lot.
back up to open space parcel number 4.
Mhm.
So it's still forever, I don't want to say Forever Wild, but that's not going to be developed. What they're looking at is east of there.
I understand that, but I also know that I've seen, like our neighbor, I think Renee, is it Renee, had said, I saw those markers go up last year. And I walked back there and I said, okay, I can see those markers from my kitchen window.
Yeah.
If that is the end of this property line for the subdivision, I'm still going to see it from 88. And the deer that come out, the rabbits, the fox, everything that we see. And the reason that I bought that property is going to be non-existent. I can't understand why Yorick can't go someplace else.
Understood.
You know, I mean, really, it's going to make a world of difference to us. So, and as I said, you know, we've got a problem with the trees already with the ash blight. It's going to be worse. So if anybody wants to share any information about what happens to Forever Wild, I'm still asking.
Yeah, well, the parcel that you back up to is Forever Wild, but the parcel that they would like to develop.
Was that never Forever Wild?
No,
That was never ever?
That was owned by somebody. It's owned by whoever is selling the lot or sold the lot to the York.
Okay.
So that was never included as part of any Forever Wild.
Okay,
So
all right,
that's my understanding.
okay. Well,
And that
thank you.
doesn't prevent a realtor from indicating that it might be. So understand that there's,
Well, I understand that part, and
Yeah.
I was
if
hoping
there's any
that
realtors in
wasn't
the
the
house, I'm
case.
sorry, but
No, I understand, and
Yeah.
that was a question that I had in my head too, well, we'll leave it at that.
yes. No,
Okay.
we appreciate your comments. And
Right.
again, this board will consider the buffering and everything that you folks are bringing
All right.
to
Thank
light
you.
this evening. Thank you. Let's go, Heather, let's go online. We'll hit a couple people that are waiting online.
All right, I'm going to grab a Scott Kopp. Scott, can you hear us? You can unmute. Scott?
Can you hear me?
There you are. Go ahead, dear.
All right, thank you. I see on the east property line, they've identified a tree line buffer that they hope to retain, but they've actually shown a swale in the tree line. Those two aren't compatible. I would suggest that the swale be beyond the drip line of the trees they're going to try to preserve, so we don't damage the root structure, and that tree line be carefully marked, maybe without orange fencing, construction fencing during the construction. I realize those are details that show up at final, but they've shown something that doesn't work. You can't have a tree buffer and then put a swale through it to drain off the property. There's an opportunity here to make the drainage better than it currently is. You know, there's two drainage patterns existing on the property, but now we've taken most of the impervious surface, which is impervious surface amounts to just a 19.8% of this entire site. And it gets focused in the area of number 24, New Tudor Road, by how they've laid this out. I think there's a greater opportunity to improve what's there, although, you know, under the town regulations, I understand it's not required, and this isn't going to require detention or retention, but not knowing what the soils are, I know they're glacial till, but not the specific soils. There may be an opportunity here to make this better for the people that are dealing with drainage from this property right now. The design that they've shown, the velocity and the volume is going to increase substantially over time because of the roof leaders being dumped onto the ground, the impervious surface from the road, all of those in close proximity to the property line. They all run back to the swale that's very shallow in the tree line. So most of the other concerns I had have been addressed. The design of the road system will have to change to comply with the New York State Fire Code that was mentioned earlier. Over 150 feet in length, it's going to require turnaround. The area at the fire hydrant is going to be required to widen to 26 feet. So there's more impervious surface than shown. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Scott, I can't quite read your last name from here. Can you spell your last name and give your address, please?
Sure. COPP 140 New Tudor Road.
Thank you.
Heather, want to take somebody else online?
Yes, next person up is Jim Sorrentino. I'm allowing to talk. Jim, can you hear us?
Jim?
Jim Sorrentino?
I'm here.
There you are.
Okay. Hello, thank you for the opportunity to provide some input from the community. I'm Jim Sorrentino, Sorrentino, and I live at 4 Dover Road, which is in Jefferson Estates. An area that I have a few questions about has to do with traffic, since the only way in and out of this proposed development is via Jefferson Road. And I was wondering if you reviewed the existing traffic and speed studies that have been done, but most recently by the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. They did one in October 14th, 2020. And just to give you a quick review, over 31,500 vehicles passed through this section of Jefferson Road over an 8-day period. And over 43% of the vehicles are traveling at a speed over 45 miles an hour. So I think this documents and supports the concerns that others have expressed already, that it is virtually you're putting your life in your hands behind a wheel if you have to exit any of the intersections and make a left-hand turn, because you have to weave your way in between two lanes going in the opposite direction of speeding vehicles. The county sheriff's office also responds to accidents and injuries, and they keep very good reports, and you'll see it documented about the frequency and the number of accidents and injuries that are related to vehicles in this area. And that has included school buses being hit and children being traumatized on their first day of school, et cetera. There's been no mention about any how the developer plans for the owners to exit and enter the property. Since it is a private road, it is the responsibility of the developer to install a traffic device, and that has to be requested and approved by the DOT. So has there been any consideration by the owner to look at any of these things? The speed, the traffic studies that are very current, and also looking at signaling devices. It was mentioned before about the Greens, which is across the street, Samantha Way, and that has 40 units packed in there. And again, they are a dead end. There's no way in or out. They have no second means of egress. And that's just one of many of the existing intersections on about a half a mile of Jefferson Road between Winton and the beginning of Locust Hill. So those are my questions having to do with the negative impact on residents. And I should also mention that we do have residents who don't have cars and need to walk or they bike, and there's no sidewalks, on any section of Jefferson Road. And I don't know if, I know that the town has approved and has installed sidewalks on many of the other connector roads, like Calkins and others. But are there any plans either by the developer or the town to add some improvements that would reduce the risk to residents who live in this area? It's a very highly dense populated area.
Thank you, Jim. Matt, I'll throw it to you to answer the question about the signaling device or the traffic. I don't know that 4 houses would generate a whole lot of extra traffic. Mr. Sorrentino, I think your concern is more global here with the other development that's gone on up that way. But Matt, if you would like to address whether any of this was looked at in this project or not.
Yeah, so we know that Jefferson Road is a fairly busy road. Everybody knows that. The development that we're proposing will have a negligible impact on any traffic along Jefferson Road, and it certainly would not trigger a traffic control device, as the state DOT has several requirements that trigger that. We've in other developments we've experienced trying to even get them that are much more impactful than this, and it's typically you're fighting an uphill battle. So they wouldn't consider any sort of traffic control device for this project, and the traffic impact would be negligible for this project.
Thank you, Matt. Mr. Sorrentino, anything else, sir?
First, what is your name? I dialed in a little bit. I had trouble dialing in. So who am I speaking to?
My name?
Yes.
I'm the chairperson of the board. It's Jim Grunert, G-R-U-N-E.
Okay, great. I guess a question, and this is to the planning board, but it's related to development, is that there has been a large parcel just down the road that is owned by St. John's Home, It's been vacant, but yet it's owned by St. John's. Is there any status report as to what's happening with that? Or are we going to see another proposal in another week or 2 weeks or whatever that would further exacerbate the existing problems in this small section of Jefferson?
Mr. Sorrentino, that's a little bit out of the purview of this public hearing, but I will let Mr. Martin, our Director of Planning and Engineering, address that question for you.
Right.
Thank you.
And for the record, it is Chris Martin, Director of Engineering and Planning. So right now, there are no plans that we've heard from for that property to be developed. And certainly if they were going to even put the same project there, so much time has elapsed that they would have to come back to the planning board. And I do get this question asked occasionally. We have some good neighbor people that I know over there that call me about every 6 months and ask, but no. So right now there are no plans. And certainly if there were plans, then we would send the notices out like a lot of you received, or hopefully all of you received tonight. So no plans, but if there are plans, we will certainly let you know. And there will be a meeting very similar to this. It's possible, depending on what they want to put in, there could be a town board meeting. Anything with multifamily, in that parcel is zoned for our multifamily, requires a town board special use permit prior to coming to the planning board. So you would not only see it at the town board level, but also at the planning board level as well.
What is the current approved zone use right now for that parcel?
So it's in our R-2-15 zoning. And what that means is you could put single family there. The minimum lot size is 12,000 square feet compared to the R-120, which the minimum lot size is 20,000 square feet. So it's a little smaller than normal, but it also allowed use is multifamily or apartments. So certainly if somebody wanted to, they could come in with a proposal to put multifamily in, which is kind of what St. John's did. But they would have to go through the very same process that St. John's did, where they came before the town board for a special use permit. And then of course they came in before the planning board as well to get planning board approval.
Thank you very much, Chris.
You're very welcome.
All set, Mr. Sorrentino?
Yes.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll go back over, please. Just your name and your address, please.
Good evening. My name is Richard Schauseil, Schauseil. I live at 12 New Tudor and have lived there for 3 years. First of all, I echo all the concerns of every resident of the Jefferson Estates. I serve on the board of directors there. And although they're varied, we support each other in all of our concerns, especially the setbacks and the drainage issues. This particular map this is a preliminary hearing. So you're going to have other hearings. Please change that map because Ms. Jacobson talked about her lot and another lady talked about her lot next to her. This only addresses the homes on New Tudor. It does not address the homes at the top of New Tudor where the wetlands and the open space is associated. So it gives a false perspective on this development. The developer, the engineer from Passero can address that, but you must have drawings that address that. Secondly, the person who made the comment, it may have been you, or you the chairman, that fighting New York State DOT is an uphill battle.
No, I didn't say that, no.
Maybe the gentleman from Passero did, or Passero. We've had the Greens. We've had the other high-scale resident on the other side of Locust Hill. We've had Jefferson Estates for over 20 years. We've got Dunwood Greens now. And each of those is an incremental development. And each time the New York State DOT says this incremental development does not address enough traffic concerns to put in any devices. Now you got the YMCA at the corner. and I'm a member there. I see the traffic, even with the light that was installed at the entrance to the Y coming west on Jefferson Road. The traffic there during peak hours is terrible. So who's ever fighting the battle with New York State DOT, please fight a little bit harder. I spent 30 years in government. I know you can push another agency around, and that's what New York State DOT is doing to the town. 5 developments in a matter of 5 years, let's say, that's too much. And as you add up those incremental developments, you now have a much bigger formula. That needs to be concerned. So change the map, show the entire development as it affects the other side of the homes that aren't affected immediately. Look at the traffic. And if you do approve this down the road, mandate the developer to buy the trash house that's on the corner of New Tudor and Jefferson Road and make that a park. That is an eyesore that we've all addressed through, it's not part of this committee, but I talked to the developer when I got my letter. He said, I'd love to buy that property. So make him buy it. Use that government term where you take over a property for the betterment of the community.
Eminent domain.
Eminent domain, I should know that. That's not going to happen, but that's all of our concerns. Wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, we listen to all kinds of trash music, blah, blah, blah. But let's get back to this. Show the true map and its effect on the residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard, what was your address again? I'm sorry.
12 New Tudor.
New Tudor, thank you. Heather, you want to go to somebody else online?
I'm not seeing anybody at this moment, Jim. I'll keep you posted.
Anybody else here would like to come up and speak? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Donna Wells. I'm at 90 New Tudor Road. My husband Don and I are probably the least long residents. We've only been there about a year and a half. When we decided to downsize, we looked everywhere. We went to many, many places. And when we came to New Tudor, it was very similar to what we left. We had some woods and we fell in love with it and we moved in, hoping that it was going to stay that way. I too was told it was forever wild, different realtor. And, but I'm not here. There are a lot of smart people that came before me and are talking about water and they're talking about all these other things that are way over my head. I just want to comment on a more personal level. And I'm going to speak for my neighbors. Most, I don't even know them yet. That it's a home for us. It's a special place. And it's such a small area that they want to develop. It's less than 2 acres. So why cram something into such a small area that's going to affect so many people? And I'm all for progress and building. You do what you got to do, but I would hope that they would look elsewhere and be sure before they crunch something so, I don't even know what the word is. It's invasive into such a small spot because it matters to us. And I also want to take a moment to thank Lori Anderson, who is our president, who obviously did an awful lot of work and research on behalf of our homes and our neighborhood. And I just wanted you to know from a personal level that it matters. It matters to us. It's too small a spot to crunch so much into. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Anyone else inside the room or outside the room?
I wanted to add something that I forgot. Because I know this can happen, I
Hey,
need you
wait till you get your mask down, and there we go.
NUS 32. I need you to know, I went to Mr. Urick a while ago, a long time ago, and offered to buy the property when it was definitely wetlands because I had checked on the property off Stone Road and was going to buy that and realized I would have to build very close to Stone Road because I couldn't build close to wetlands. So I offered to buy that just in case, and Mr. Yurick wouldn't sell. So this has been in the works for a long while. And I don't blame people for wanting to, but at that time, if I had purchased the property, the only thing I could have done at that time was to build a home closer to Jefferson Road, and it would have left the whole back of the property as it was. And by the way, in the back of the property, very close to 32, which if you look at your map, it's about the 5th house down with the little peak that goes back. There used to be a pond back there. An actual pond, P-O-N-D, pond, an actual pond. So there was a pond, and it's also a lot of clay. So they can say what they want to about draining water here and there. That water is going to go where it wants to go because it ain't going to go through the clay. And again, please put sewer on your list and see how many times our people, you know how many times they've been to the pump station.
Yep.
And pumping uphill there, and you're going to put more of usage on that.
Yeah, I will say they do go every week for maintenance, just as make sure that the pump station is working adequately and things like that. So they do visit it every week, not only that pump station, but all of them. But we understand your concerns.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the room?
My name is Ron Ketchum. I live at 20 New Tudor.
I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Ron Ketchum.
Can you speak closer to the microphone, sir? Thank you.
Ron Ketchum, Ketchum,
And address?
20 New Tudor. I'm kind of waiting to hear all the comments because our house is very affected by this project. I would like to offer to Chris to please come to my house, our property, bring the maps from the developer so we can go over those. The sanitary line that's shown on a different map comes right down on our lot line. There is a 20-foot easement there. If that's there, all of those trees go away.
Yep.
That can't happen.
Yep.
That should be moved more to the west. That leaves a buffer where the trees could stay there.
Actually, I'm sorry, go ahead. I was going to interrupt, but.
Oh, no, it's okay. I just want somebody to come and look. And some of the drainage issues, you'll be able to see the little creek that flows in the back of my yard in the spring. And when we were gone during the winter, somebody was in the back property with a postal digger and dug 3 or 4 holes back there. When we got back in April, the holes were there and the holes were filled with water. There's water up there.
Yeah.
And there's going to be more.
And I'll be honest, I don't mean to interrupt you, Mr. Ketchum, but you actually, if you looked at on my comments, I'm pretty much parroted exactly what you're saying. And again, what I'd like to see the developer do is to put the sanitary sewer on the other side, on the east side, I'm sorry, the west side of the houses near the water, to preserve that tree line.
Right.
I think that tree line is very important, and I think I'd like to, try to get 30 to 40 feet of buffer in through there. And the way that the sewer is laid out, there's not enough cover when you get that far south. But if you go on the other side, there is more because the houses are a little bit higher because of the road grade and such. So this is something that we'd like to meet with the developer and go over to, some of the ideas or concerns that we have. But we echo a lot of the concerns that we've heard tonight. And I'd be more than happy to come out and take a look if you want,
Okay, I can be available anytime.
Okay.
Starting tomorrow morning. The other thing I just want to comment to, I know another person mentioned that they would not like to see the road flipped. For us, where we live, it's going to impact 4 or 5 houses on our side the way it is right now.
Yeah.
If the road is flipped, it only impacts 2 lots on the other side. Now, I know that, again, we'll line the road up with Samantha's Way, which is probably ideal. So that's about all, but I would really like you to come and bring your maps.
Okay.
Because I can show you some things that you may not be aware of. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Heather, anyone online?
Nothing at this time, Jim.
Okay, anyone outside would like to come in and speak? Anyone else in the room like to come up and speak? Okay, I will poll the board. Mr. Page, anything, any comments you have, sir?
Well, I just wanted to mention to the people in attendance that just what you read or what you hear or what you see, that's what, when the developer says there's no variances, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's no variances. When they say there's no drainage control.
Mitigation or?
Yeah, that doesn't mean that it's going to end up that way. We understand your issues and we thank you very much for coming here and sharing. And we will listen to what you said and try our very best to incorporate everything you said into our future plans.
Thank you. Mr. McIntyre, anything you'd like to address at this time? Thank you. Mr. List?
No, I listened very carefully to all the neighbors and everyone that came tonight. I think it's really important that we take all of your opinions into consideration. I know your neighborhood very well. I travel through it often, and you really have something special there. And I'd like to, I'm going to take my time and really take in your considerations into view. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. List. Mrs. Brill?
I have nothing other than I agree with what everyone said, including it's a very small property to be
Thank you.
adding additional homes.
Okay, one more time. Heather, anybody online?
Still nothing, Jim. Thank you.
Okay. Well, if there are no more comments regarding this application, I therefore close the public hearing. The planning board will now adjourn the public hearing of tonight's meeting. I want to thank everybody for coming. We listened and we appreciate your input tonight.
The next section, next section is going to be the workshop session. So if you don't mind, Jim.
Yep.
If anybody wants to stay and see, what the board is going to discuss, you're more than welcome to stay. You don't have to leave. Sorry, Jim.
No, that's okay. Thank you, Chris.
Chris, is there a water fountain out there working? Or is it
Yes,
closed because
there's
of-
one over here. It's still
I
open.
couldn't come up with stormwater management on. I tried.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll open tonight's normal workshop portion of the meeting. Members present, Patricia Brill, Steve McIntyre, Walter List, Rick Page, absent are Craig Eckert and Matt Borkowski. Town staff present, Chris Martin, Director of Engineering and Planning. Chris, what's your last name again? I'm sorry. Hauser, thank you. Planning Board Attorney, Dan Mastrella. And Heather Voss. We'll pause just for a minute here as the group.
Yeah.
In fact, you know what? We're gonna take a 5-minute break here. Thank you. We're gonna adjourn for 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Do you want me to pass them out or do you? Absolutely. Absolutely. And we can put this into the public record.
I hope she's going to get some
Yeah,
water.
we always ask
Usually
people to
have
send us emails.
Do we? Do you want to take a break? We're on adjournment right now, recess, so go ahead.
To be honest, let me see if I have an extra one.
It is a little warm in here tonight, yeah.
Now, there are other comments from other staff members. Let me see. If I have an extra copy, Carol, I'd be more than happy to share it with you, or here it is. Yeah, I'll tell you what, this I think is an extra copy. So I'm going to give you the stapled copy. Is that the right one? Let me just double check. Yep, that's it. So you can have those. Yep. Yeah, and if you need some of the other comments, what I can do is email you. Do I have is your email address on right there? Okay. So what we can do is there's other staff comments like the fire marshal and the building inspector. I can forward those comments to you as well. All right. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so we'll see. We want to meet with the developer after the meeting. So I think what we want to do is to see, how they can address our comments, things like that. I mean, to be honest, we really want them to cut down the number of lots. I think by the time they do everything that they want to, they might be down to 3. But yeah, to be honest, we would like something down here. The sewer that comes down here, I want to see if they can put it here, maybe push the houses back just a little bit, but try to maintain more of a buffer in through here. Yeah.
What about DOT? Really, I don't know.
Well,
It's always been coach.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Oh, dear.
No, I asked for years, never done. So drinking fountain is, and I just had it at one time. Yep, we always did, that's why I always said, yeah, the drinking fountain. Yeah, drinking fountain is cold and good. It is hot in here.
It is. I'm surprised they actually have it.
I asked first.
I don't think so. Chris, we got access over to the, Heather's over there. Heather's in there. Yeah.
Bring a handful, please. Oh, here comes Chris. Sales COVID. 30% increase. No, over last year. Correct. We are excited. They did a questionnaire. Anonymous survey, right? But we're all got back to our boss. No names. Some people are getting their quote.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
It's all about that.
All these years, trying to figure them out.
So, also those comments tomorrow.
You have a big tall one, Daddy. You have a big tall one you brought in here.
We need one that's
Oh, that was one.
Yeah, I thought it was asleep.
That's
Obviously, the air conditioning's not on, right?
air conditioning's not on back?
Oh, Becky, thank you.
Oh, bless your heart.
I don't know the status.
It's called Sharon Page. Oh.
Yeah, that nasty one on the corner. Yeah, exactly. I'll show you which one.
Thank you, Becky.
Thank you so much. Oops, don't open it. The carbonation will go everywhere.
We have 5 things on our agenda. We just finished the first one. So it's going to be a late one. Is there anything for Shannon?
Very much.
We got everybody.
Much appreciated.
I text you.
We're still have taken a break too, don't you? We'll have to take another break within about an hour. If I disappear in the middle of an application, you'll know why. All right.
Not as bad as I would have thought, but it is a lucky. We always drive through the Christmas lights. Yeah, I mean. I mean, that's the first thing that did it.
I agree. Okay, I will
Let's do it.
resume the meeting. So we called the roll. First item on the agenda will be the minutes from the April 20th, 2021 meeting. Does the board have any comments on the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Mr. Page, thank you.
Second.
Mr. McIntyre, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The motion carries. Thank you. We have minutes. Okay, first application tonight is number PB 327, York subdivision. Again, for preliminary subdivision approval of a 4-lot residential subdivision on 1.87 acres of property located on Jefferson Road in an R120 zoned district. Matt, are you still online?
Yes.
Thank you. So I don't know if you have anything extra you'd like to add to your presentation that you gave to the public hearing at all?
Not really. The only thing I'd like to add is, there's been a lot of talk about buffering and the sewer. And one of the reasons why we put the sewer on the side of the property that we did was really to mitigate the amount of sewer that has to go in the DOT right away, along with the just total amount of maintained that's required to be maintained. We could certainly look at putting that on the other side of the road to increase the buffering and seeing what that does to the homes, the proposed homes rather, to see if we can still service them all with it being on the proposed access drive side. So I think that might clear up a lot of concerns. I know, there's a lot of talk about lot size and all of that. One thing I want to add is that the homes on New Tudor Road are there's about 2 of their homes for one of our lots. And our lot sizes meet all the requirements within the zoning code. They are the minimum lot size or larger. And again, we've kind of outlined our setbacks, our proposed setbacks. I know Chris had mentioned, and I had read in some of the comments that had come in about a stormwater management facility. We're certainly open to providing some sort of stormwater management. These types of smaller developments, 4-lot subdivisions, don't really generate a lot of runoff, but we're certainly open to providing some sort of stormwater management to help mitigate that. So I think that covers it. If you guys have any more questions for me, that'd be great.
All right, well, thank you. You heard the concerns. There were some pretty significant concerns with the public this evening. I will open it up to the board right now. I know they've got some comments as well. And Mr. Page, I'll start with you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have 2 major concerns that I think would address a significant part of the concerns of the neighbors. And I understand, the theory of not in my backyard, but they are correct with, that is a very wet area. I've walked that years past when I was on a planning board for the same issue. So I think the stormwater management facility is something that I really think is mandatory here, given the nature of the water situation there. And if I know you could connect the drainage from the impervious road, the 26-foot road, but if we could do this, even from the drainage from the roof, if we could connect that, that would alleviate a lot of the problems that they have along with water. The other main issue I have that's sort of set in stone with me is the turnaround for the largest piece of fire equipment, especially on a one-access egress situation to Jefferson Road. And I'm afraid in order to put that in, you may have to go to 3 houses, but that, we'll discuss that down the road, but that's going to be important to me. Along with the fact that you need a 60-foot setback for the first house and it's not there. So you would need a variance in order to get us, the way it sits now, it's, you don't have a 60-foot setback from West Jefferson Road.
But we do, actually, I don't mean to interrupt. We do have a 60-foot setback for the first house off of Jefferson Road. It was actually one of the first things we picked up on doing the layout. It shows up pretty clearly on our plan. And then to address the fire truck turnaround, what I typically do in these types of situations is I can use the driveway for the last house as the fire truck turnaround. So we can find some way to incorporate that fire truck turnaround pretty easily without a lot of change. So.
Okay, that'd be good. And the reason I mentioned the 60-foot setback, it was a comment from Kevin Wilson, our fire and building and fire prevention person. It was the first comment on his York subdivision sheet. I don't know if you saw.
I did see the comments, and I can certainly put something together to help point that out more clear for him.
Okay. I'll leave some other topics for my teammates to do, but the landscaping and berming is going to be a major part of this as well, and I know that you're aware of that. Has the New York State DOT given you an entrance off of Jefferson yet?
Not yet. We've definitely submitted our plans and the permit proposal to them for review.
Okay. And I'll let somebody else discuss the situation with the trees and moving the project over so you don't have to take those trees out to the east. I think that's a major concern. I think it will be a major concern of this planning board. Let's see. That's the major things that I wanted to bring up. I'll let my teammates add their comments to that as well. Thank you, Mr. Bruner.
You're welcome. Mrs. Brill, would you like to go next?
Thank you. I would like to jump on board with something Rick brought up, and it was about the fire truck apparatus. Did I hear you say that they could use the last driveway as a turnaround?
Yeah, typically what we do in that situation is we make it wider. We try to accommodate the turnaround at the end. And sometimes it's the driveway for the last house. But we'll make sure we can accommodate a fire truck.
Yeah, what if the driveway's full of cars? What if they have people over or whatever? You can't rely on using that last driveway at all. I totally disagree with that.
Yeah, I mean, usually we kind of couple it with an easement or some sort of permit that does not allow access and a portion of it for the fire truck turnaround.
So it is a very wet area. As Chris confirmed, part of it, not all of that, has been deemed wetlands, although it is all wet land, fair to say. We have clay soil in Henrietta, my property. I can't even walk in it today. It's getting better every day with this warm weather, but it's the nature of the clay soil in this area. And no guarantees can be made at all, but if some guarantee could be made, the one gentleman said, I believe it was Ron Ketchum at number 20 New Tudor. I believe it was him that, oh no, I'm incorrect. It was the gentleman that called in, forgive me. That
Mr. Sorrentino?
Quite possibly this could improve the drainage of the existing homes. And we've seen that with other builds in the area where they've come in and they have taken care of drainage issues to surrounding properties and made it much better for them. So it was a win-win, very much so. I don't know how much we would be able to do here, and certainly no guarantees can be made. But I am not for this at all. I think it is such a slim piece of property. And the one lady used the word cram houses in there. She used another word too that I wrote down, but I'll just leave it at that. I'm not for this for a variety of reasons. Cutting down the trees, the noise that would be incurred. Where I live, we had some things removed, and it did cause us to hear 390 much louder than we used to be able to. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I digress. Next.
Thank you, Mrs. Brill. Mr. List?
You're off now. You are on. You are off now.
Oh,
there we go.
There I am. Okay. Just echoing some of the, the concerns of the neighbors that came tonight with the drainage issues, and then echoing our comments here tonight about the fire vehicles. And I will agree with Patty about, I'm not a big fan of this proposal. I drove over there today. It's very tight. I just, this is a preliminary work session. So as you, I know, and Mr. York owns that property. He's following the things that he needs to do to try and build something there. I noticed on his website that he's primarily in commercial real estate or multifamily dwellings. I don't know, does he have a lot of experience in single family development?
Yeah, he's actually started getting into the last couple of years doing single family homes.
There is one in Rush, on Rush Henrietta Town Line Road. I don't know if that where that stands, or if it's in, something that someone could go and look at and see what kind of developer he is. Just wondering that, but we'll let things play out going forward, and we'll see where it goes. That's all I really have, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. List. Yes, Mrs.
Do
Brill.
we know if he was in attendance this evening? Matt, do you know if he was here this evening?
I be honest with you, I didn't even look at who was here. I know his daughter as the actual property owner of the property, but I don't see him on here now.
They were on earlier listening to all the comments?
I don't know. I can't confirm that.
Sorry, I thought when you said they're not on here, I thought you meant anymore.
Oh, no, they're not on here currently. That's what I meant. Sorry.
Chair will recognize Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Matt, all I can do is just keep reiterating what our other board members have said, that we know that area to begin with, undeveloped, is a wet area. And adding impervious surfaces for a roof line, a roadway, several driveways, it's only going to add to the problem. How far away are you from the drainage report on this?
So, we didn't really actually prepare one, mainly because in following along with the New York State DEC stormwater regs, a drainage report, SWIP, whatever, is not required for this project because it's under a 5-acre threshold. But I did see Chris's comments today and asking that us, or the developer, the engineer, put together some sort of stormwater management area, which we can do fairly quickly and fairly efficiently. But we don't have anything prepared currently.
How soon before you could add something to the town?
Probably a couple of weeks.
Couple of weeks?
Yep.
Do you need some additional time to put the drainage report together?
It doesn't, this is Chris Martin, Director of Engineering and Planning. Certainly, Matt, you're right. We don't need a SWIP or anything like that. But,
just a drainage report that addresses, some of the smaller storms, like the 210, 25. It doesn't have to be certainly, like I said, per the DEC requirements, but at least something that's going to help the people out over there. And, have less runoff leaving the site than there is in the existing conditions.
Yeah, and that's something we can put together fairly quickly. So I'm not sure when the next board meeting is or when the next opportunity to meet is. But the goal was to try to be able to get it over to you guys prior to that meeting, or at least Chris for his review.
And can I jump in here? Matt, were you folks aware that, and Chris, I don't know if we were either, that there's an actual spring, allegedly a spring there, underwater spring?
There are. We've had, after the subdivision was built, and even years afterwards, there have been springs in that general area that have caused, I don't say flooding or anything like that, but certainly some wet areas where you wouldn't think there would be any. In fact, when we found this out way after the fact, but when the contractor was putting in the road for New Tudor Road, there was a spring that he tied into our sanitary sewer, unbeknownst to us. And to be honest, there's no really good way to get rid of it.
Okay.
So it does cause some concerns with our pump station. Not so concerns, but it makes the station run a little bit more than it should. So that's something that we've been certainly keeping an eye on, but it runs nonstop. You could probably drink the water, it's that good, before it gets into the sewer, but yes, there are issues over there.
So is there something that we can ask the developer in this case to do to help the town, to help mitigate that problem at all?
I think with the stormwater management facility over there and, trying to pick up less water that's coming over. I mean, certainly this subdivision is higher than the subdivision to, Jefferson Estates to the east. But, I think if we can kind of take some of that water and direct it into the wetlands, that would certainly help. But that's something I think, Matt, I would like to maybe sit down with you and certainly the Yorks if they want to, and kind of go over some of these concerns and then, come back with maybe something revised that we can, come back to the board with. But I think we touched on some of this stuff, and I think you already mentioned like moving the sewer and things like that, I think would certainly help with the buffer and even help with the cover over the pipe.
Okay. Matt, any other comments?
I don't. I'm definitely, Chris, I'll reach out to you to see if we can set up a time just to kind of sit down and discuss this and see if we can come up with some solutions to some of the drainage. And like I said, we're more than willing to comply with everything and work with the neighbors. Obviously, we want to be a good neighbor as well. So whatever we can do, we definitely want to do it.
Good. Okay, Mr. McIntyre, I'm sorry, I stepped on your feet there.
Sorry. Matt, the idea of using the last driveway as a turnaround, have you proposed that to the fire marshal?
I have not. I've done it in the past. The other thing we could potentially do, we'll look at some sort of solution to be able to make that work. Even if we have to put a full turnaround in, we can accommodate it. It's just, I know there's a lot of sensitivity with the tree clearing and all that. So maybe there's an alternative that we can work out with the fire marshal that doesn't involve clearing a lot of trees and it still allows us to give them a sufficient turnaround that works for them.
Yeah, I don't think using somebody's driveway as a turnaround, like Mrs. Brill said, you can't guarantee that the driveway is going to be empty at the time they need to turn around. Plus, the weight of the equipment might tear up the standard residential driveway unless it's a reinforced driveway. So I would think it's up to the fire marshal, but I think it would have to be a dedicated turnaround.
Yeah, I don't like that idea either.
And I'd probably want to see that on the application.
We'll reach out to the fire marshal and discuss some of our options and see what we can do to maybe mitigate that. Maybe it's even, switching some of the lots around and to accommodate, but I think we can come up with something.
Chris had mentioned under general number 7, discussing some bermings and landscaping adjacent to any existing residence. Have you kind of had a chance to flesh that out a bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're able to move that sanitary sewer, I think the better idea would be to try to leave some of the existing trees rather than berm anything. Because if we go and berm something, it would require us to take down the mature trees to create a berm. So I think the better option is really to try to move the sanitary sewer over to the road side or the access side, and then go back and try to increase the stand of trees that's there. But again, it's something we can discuss further if that doesn't work.
All right, those are my concerns.
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
Well, I think we've gotten a lot of information tonight, Matt, and I think you have a real good idea what the concerns of the public are and what the concerns of this board are. It sounds like you're heading in the right direction. And that being said, let me first throw it to Mr. Martin and Mr. Mastrella. Any comments, gentlemen, from you? No?
No, I don't think you're ready for a preliminary approval.
Thank you.
Everything you've got, but because if you give a preliminary approval, you're sort of tying yourselves into a lot of things that you just said you don't like.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and as far as me, man, I think you know my concerns are for the comments, obviously drainage, buffering, things like that. The only other question I have, and Patty wanted me to ask this, there's a picture on your wall behind you. Is that a picture of Tim Harris? It looks like him. What?
Really? Because that's actually Muhammad Ali.
It looked a little bit like Tim. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, I will tell him that he will love that.
Yeah, well, thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. And like I said, later, if you want to talk to your client and then, set up a meeting, maybe I can get the fire marshal as well.
Yep.
We can, talk over a couple ideas.
Yeah, that sounds great. I will talk to him and then see what we can do to set something up.
Thank you.
Okay,
That's all I have.
thank you, Mr. Martin. All that being said, I think the chair would like to make a motion to table application number PB327. I think there's a lot of questions out there. There's some work that can be done. Matt, I think we'd like to see maybe another plan come forward addressing these things. So my motion is to table application PB327. Mrs. Brill? Mr. Brill, second? Okay, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The application is tabled. Okay, so Matt, we'll see you in a couple weeks or maybe next month, actually. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for being here tonight.
Yep. Take care.
Okay, next item on the agenda, application number 21-006, Lehigh Mixed Use Development Apartments for final site plan approval of a 352-unit complex with apartments and townhomes on 57.533 acres located at 84 Lehigh Station Road in an industrial zoned district with a mixed use employment overlay. Who is here, please, representing the applicant this evening?
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Jess Sudol with Passport Associates, representing Commercial Street Partners, who are the applicant. And with that, if everybody's ready, I'll do a brief presentation. I know you guys have already had a pretty long evening, so I won't try to take too much of your time. Heather, if you're able to, can you please pull up the site rendering?
Do you want the one that you sent, Jess, or the one previously sent?
The one I sent, which is the colored version, please.
Got it. One sec.
While Heather's pulling that up, this property has quite a long history with the town. There's certainly some members on the board who may be familiar with it. Oh, and I'm sorry, Heather, I was referencing the colored site plan if we have it, although those are the buildings, which we can speak to in a bit, or a few of the buildings. There you go, thank you. So this parcel is was previously considered by both the town board and the planning board about 4 years ago in conjunction with an additional 80 acres that are located south of Lehigh Station Road. This 57 acres here is on the northeast corner of Lehigh Station and East River. You can kind of see off to the left of the screen, that's the access that goes back into the Lodge student housing project. At that time, there was 3 different residential projects that were proposed and ultimately approved. Shortly after, the town passed a moratorium on multifamily development. Out of that moratorium came the mixed use overlay districts, which our proposal now complies with. But the previous approval included approximately 500 units. Things have since changed now, and the only portion of the project in its entirety, which also includes the 80 acres on the south side of Lehigh Station Road, the only residential portion is the 57 acres on the north side. We've spent about the last year working with the town board on a number of special use permits, namely a special use permit to establish the mixed use overlay district. And at that point, we considered the approximately 352 units that are shown on the site plan in front of you, and additionally, some industrial space on the south side of Lehigh Station Road, which is part of the mixed use component. And the third leg of that, which is required by the mixed use overlay district, is a civic component, and that is included in this site plan. There's a very elaborate trail system. There's several open space maintained areas that have been identified. But anyway, the town board granted the overlay district as one special use permit. They then granted a second special use permit to allow multifamily housing on this site. And then the third special use permit was related to the building height for the 4 buildings that you see there towards the top of the page, kind of in a quad there. Those are 4 buildings, each one of them being 4 stories in height, and each one of them containing 58 units. The rest of the buildings are all 2-story buildings, and they're also apartments. Everything in the project is a rental, but we call them townhomes because they have individual entries and they have their own individual garages, and those are 2-story buildings. So once the town board granted the 3 special use permits, that established kind of the overall special use permit that would govern the development of each individual parcel. The first one that will be built is the parcel on the north end, which is before you this evening for site plan review. We do hope that the parcels on the south side will eventually come forward with an identified user and also be subject to site plan review. But for the sake of this board, we're just considering the 352 units and nothing on the south side, but I thought it was important to put some of that in context. So as noted, the majority of the density for the project is located in that 4-building quad. And that quad was strategically located on the northern end of the site, which A, maximizes the separation from Lehigh Station Road and a couple single family homes that are down there. And it's also the lowest point on the site, which is, because they're 4-story buildings, certainly mitigates the potential impact of the building height by being at that lower elevation. And those were certainly things that were considered as part of the town board's review when they were, looking at the building height special use permit, which I believe was noted in the town engineer's comments as a required variance, and that has been obtained actually as recently as last week. One of the first things I want to point out is that even though it is a 350 unit project, which is relatively good size by Monroe County standards anyway, is that of the 57 acres, we're only planning to disturb about half of that. So you see, I believe it's a red line that goes around the page. I'm actually colorblind, so I can't quite tell if that's red. But the majority, or I shouldn't say majority, but about half of the site would be disturbed to allow for this development as currently proposed. But we are able to preserve and essentially leave untouched almost a half of the site. And again, that's accomplished by clustering the density of the project right there in the center. There's a stream on site. There's also several pockets of federal wetlands. And we're able to avoid all of that, with the layout as currently proposed. I do want to point out that there is a stream crossing, but rather than putting fill in the stream, which would require a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers permit, we are spanning across that creek to allow for the pedestrian trail connection as to not disturb any of that creek. And that occurs just to the north of the that quad of buildings there. There's also a cultural resource area that was identified during the previous seeker review. And want to back up quickly, the town board, as part of the special use permit, did perform a seeker review on the entire project, including this parcel and the parcel to the south, and did issue a negative declaration after, quite amount of paperwork and meetings and things of that nature. So anyway, the project as proposed, again, has 12 buildings, the 2-story buildings, or townhomes that we refer to them as have 10 units each for a total of 120 units. And then the 4-story buildings have 58 units each for a total of 232 units. Of those 232 units in the 4-story buildings, 104 of those are 2-bedroom units and 128 of them are 1-bedroom units. And I think it's important to point that out as it relates to the parking. There was some comments in there from the town engineer and also the fire marshal regarding the parking. We are showing our ability to meet the parking requirement of 2.5 spaces per unit by providing a significant amount of land bank parking. Again, that's parking that could theoretically be built over there, but we don't believe that there'll ever be the need for us to do that. And the reason really ties back to that 1- and 2-bedroom mix that I was speaking to a little bit earlier, in that, when you're looking at parking as it relates to units, it can be a little deceptive because you could have a majority of your units be, 1 bedroom and have a single resident in most cases, which is the case with our project, or you could have 3- and 4-bedroom units, which could have 3 or 4 or 5 people living in them. And that same ratio of 2.5 spaces per unit would still apply. So, we feel that the parking that's currently provided is more than enough to satisfy the demand for the actual unit types that we have. And the way that we accomplished that was that we made sure that kind of in that central quad, which also does include approximately 40 covered spaces, that we're providing 1 space per each of the bedrooms. And that's the way that we typically do our analysis now, because we feel that's a much more accurate depiction of our parking need, is looking at, okay, well, how many people are actually going to be there, how many bedrooms, and then let's tailor the parking to that. And then anything that's required in excess of that per the town code, which again is based on units, then we look to land bank that throughout the project, which is what we have done in this case. I do want to point out the trail system. The trail system comes down from the northwest corner of the site. I believe most people in the town are familiar with the town's desires to expand and connect the trail system along the entire western portion of the town of Henrietta. We're certainly doing that by providing the connection that comes through our site and then comes in and ties back up to the trail at the corner of East River Road and Lehigh Station. There's an existing trail there where people could then cross the street and access the trail system that goes through Rinaldi's tech campus and then also up and around the Lodge project. So really, this project ties into all those existing trail system and creates a really nice loop for residents of this area. When the mixed use overlay district was contemplated, it was really the idea of having the ability to work, live, and play. Certainly with the proposal on the south side of the project, which again isn't part of this review tonight, there'll be a significant amount of job opportunities. There's, of course, an existing job opportunity across the street at the Riverwood Tech Campus. And then, of course, the residential component, which is what we are proposing, would be the live portion. And then lastly, when it comes to play or recreation, if you will, that's where we provide our civic component, which satisfies the requirements of the mixed use overlay district and has all those trails that goes around the entire project and accesses all those green spaces. We do have one primary access point coming off of Lehigh Station Road, and that's located in the same area as the previous project that received all of its approvals before the whole game plan was kind of changed. From there, you enter traveling south to north, and the second building that you see there on the right next to that intersection, is a clubhouse, which would have a leasing area and fitness area and conference rooms and things of that nature, a pool in the back that would be available to all the residents. From there, you kind of start to drive down the hill, going through those townhome buildings with individual garages, eventually accessing that core density area that's all the way in the back of the project, or at least in the back of the disturbed area. There's still another 500 feet plus from the backs of those units all the way to the north property line all of that area, which will be preserved other than the incorporation of the trail system. When it comes to looking at potential impact and engineering issues, of course, we have provided a full stormwater pollution prevention plan, which has been reviewed by the town's engineering consultant. We've received those comments, are in the process of addressing them. Certainly, it's something that we're very familiar with, working with the town's engineering consultant, and didn't see anything that appeared to be an issue there. In terms of traffic, we did do a comprehensive traffic study. This project is required to pay into the East River Road Corridor District. I'm not sure if I have that name exactly right, but basically there was a district established as part of the East River Road Corridor Study, where projects that are developed and put traffic on East River Road are required to make a monetary payment that would then be put towards future improvements to the corridor. I believe that number for this project is approximately $125,000, which the applicant has already committed to paying into that district. And that would cover things like improvements at the East River Road Lehigh Station intersection and other areas that have been previously identified. In addition to that, we are proposing some shoulder widening on Lehigh Station Road at our access point, and that came out of the review with the Monroe County DOT. One of the other items that has come up as part of the engineering review, I want to point out, I will just say generally that, after reviewing all the comments, there are a lot of them, but it is a relatively decent sized project, so that was expected, but we didn't see anything there that, would be difficult to address. I forgot exactly which comment I was talking about, but I will switch over to the access points. There's 2 access points that are currently shown. One of them is the primary access that would be used day to day. Remind me, the comment I was about to address was phasing, which I'll get to. And then we have a second emergency egress, which is located about 200 feet to the west of our current access point. The fire marshal pointed out that based on the fire code, we should look at increasing the separation to that, which is something that we can do. I will say that the presence of that culturally protected area, which is shown in the red hatch, somewhat limits our ability to do that. For example, we wouldn't want to put our access road, our emergency access road, in between that single family home and the cultural resource area, because that would impact that property. Instead, that area has been identified as one where we'll be providing some additional screening. But certainly there are, I think 2 really good options for us to satisfy that comment. One is we can move that emergency access further to the west without impacting the cultural resource area to increase the separation. And then we can also look at moving our primary access a little bit to the east to kind of spread them out a bit. And then finally, a second option would be to just extend that dead end road that has the townhomes on it to provide a emergency only access point out to East River Road. And we'll review both of those options with the town engineer, the fire marshal, and the county DOT. But I've looked at the grade, the elevations, and we're certainly able to accommodate either one of them to address that. In terms of the phasing, we're still working out whether or not the project will be construction phased. And essentially what that means is, of the 352 units, 176 of them, if it was split right down the middle, would be financed first. We'd start construction. We'd do the vast majority of the site work for the entire project. We'd start building that first phase of buildings. And then once we got closer to completion, then the banks would finance the rest of the project. So in terms of the person that drives by every day that or isn't intimately involved in the financing of it, the phasing doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot. But it is something that we're anticipating, and certainly on future rounds of submissions, while we're working with town staff and stakeholders to get final plans put together for permits, we'll show that, phasing line and where that would occur and how that would kind of divvy up the project. But again, it's when I say phasing, it doesn't mean that we're going to build one phase and then sit on it for 2 or 3 years and then start the second phase. The whole thing will be, built in one, continuous cycle. It's just a matter of phasing it and then subdividing it into 2 lots for bank financing. And if it turns out that that is required, there would be a future subdivision plan, just, creating 2 separate lots for the purpose of mortgages. But, our client, Commercial Street Partners, plans to build out the entire thing. They plan to do it all at once. They, various members of the Commercial Street Partners group have completed residential projects in the town of Henrietta, including the lodge across the street, including the Apex student housing project up at RET. that's going on right now. So they're very familiar with the town's process, and I think have a very well-established track record and reputation. One thing I do want to point out, because I did not say it earlier, this is being proposed and constructed as a market rate project. And, I just say that to differentiate it from things like purpose-built student housing, which you've heard in the past on some of those projects specifically that I just mentioned, where they're leasing out each individual bed and then they're providing furniture on running it as student housing. That's not the case for this project. This would be market rate. We feel there's a strong demand, and we've seen a strong demand based on our experiences in the other projects for 1 and 2 bedroom units. And that's coming from, it's coming from a lot of seniors and grad students and young professionals who have, recently graduated and may have an opportunity to work in this employment area. Those are the types of people that, we can't accommodate in our student projects, but certainly we have seen a strong demand for that, which was really the precipice for, the approach to this project. And again, with the opportunity to preserve nearly half of the 80-acre site, that would be, the term that you guys hear a lot, but forever wild, essentially. We're really not impacting any neighboring properties. There's no single family homes in the area. The potential environmental impact has been thoroughly vetted by the town board as part of the seeker review. So we think we're at a point where we have a really solid proposal here. Again, received a bunch of comments from town engineer and the various town consultants, and are actively addressing those. And, we'll be providing revised plans, as is the normal course of action for this type of thing. So with that, that's kind of my broad overview, but as always, happy to answer any questions that the board has.
Very good, Jess. Thank you. Good presentation. Chair will recognize Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Jess, I saw the May 11th memo from Chris that indicated there was about 21 items just in general alone. Are you sure you got a handle on all these?
I am. I wouldn't say that and come to this meeting unless I reviewed them 3 or 4 times and looked at the plans and make sure that they were easily addressed, so that I can say that confidently.
Okay. For example, number 14, I don't know what the colors of these buildings are supposed to be. I can't tell from the drawings that you provided. It looks like kind of a, I don't know. Anybody want to take a?
Or is the board, are you referring to the color of the buildings themselves, which is kind of what we're looking at here?
I don't know if you can see us. This is what we received.
Yeah, that's the black and white version, I believe, but obviously the color version is here. Jess, did you want, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Steve, but did you want to kind of go through the building at all and talk?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to. So this building, I'm assuming that everybody is looking at the same screen I am, but this shows the 4 buildings that are in the northern portion of the site. As previously mentioned, they are 4 stories, and they do have a pitched roof to preserve the residential style of the neighborhood, our project, adjacent projects. One of the things I pointed out to the town board last week is because the ground elevation is so low in that area, that the top of the roof for this building would actually be at about the same elevation as the first floor entry of the buildings that used to be the Racket Club that are now called the Hill. So it really sits down and won't be, won't obstruct any views for people on East River Road or Lehigh Station. But again, we've gone with a color scheme that's, a little bit more earth tones. It's a little bit, we've gone with dark windows instead of white windows to differentiate ourselves a little bit in the market. There are, of course, balconies, which we think is a, valuable asset for the future residents. The first floor has a stone veneer water table, if you will, that extends the entire, first 12 feet. They, give a, mix up the material facade, and is also better for maintenance. From there, we've, looked to vary the, provide some jogs, I guess I should say, along the building face so that there's not a flat wall of siding. We've then, played with the variation of the windows building colors on the siding itself to try to give it some depth, and also to, again, provide that variation to help mitigate the actual size of the building. It's not a terribly huge building, but 4 stories and 58 units is a good enough size that warrants those types of architectural treatments. You can see on this plan here, we have provided a comprehensive list and pictures of the different materials that have been identified for this building. And the siding is the same type of siding that was used, on the hill and the lodge, which is a high quality vinyl siding that, has held up since those projects were built. And there's certainly, common in this immediate development area. Is that what you were referring to, Mr. McIntyre, or was it another question?
Oh, actually, that's what I was referring to. We were looking for samples and colors, so. Landscape and lighting, C number 1. Additional buffering should be provided around the existing residence located along Lehigh Station Road. What is your strategy for that?
Yeah, that's actually, the same property I touched on briefly when I was talking about options for relocation of the emergency egress. So if you look in the lower left-hand corner of this drawing, you can kind of see a square, if you will, that's been carved out. That's that single-family home. It's got an additional 100-foot buffer requirement around it, which we're maintaining, and then some, so we're not infringing on that. You can see through the aerial that there's already some pretty significant existing vegetation on that property that helps screen it. But what we'll do as part of our landscaping plan, and I saw that comment, we're very happy to supplement that screening, by providing additional plantings both on the north side of that property and also on the east side between their property line and that protected cultural area. I don't think it's appropriate because of the topography, which is, relatively steep coming off of the back of that lot, to try to force a berm in there. That would probably do more harm than good and really not benefit anybody. But, certainly the opportunity to, place a lot more plantings on our side of the property line to supplement the existing screening, is how we'll approach that.
Okay. Chris, I got one last question. It's your general number 6. It says a parking study will need to be provided and approved by the planning board. Are we supposed to get something that we're supposed to look at and approve?
Yeah, and Jess kind of touched on, I'm sorry, Chris Martin, Director of Engineering and Planning. And Jess, I think you kind of touched on it a little bit. Typical our requirement is 2.5 spaces. And obviously, if you don't need the spaces, then certainly they're not required. We would rather see them land banked like you provided. But I think we'd like to see some type of calculations of why you feel that 1.8 or whatever that the new count is that works. If you have something that, from another development that you're basing that on, I just think we'd like to see something that addresses that.
Yeah, essentially what I can offer is, basically a written version of what I talked through earlier, which is how we geographically located the parking on the site based on, specifically serving the different unit types and number of residents, and maybe identify those areas with the supporting numbers so that, the town can easily say, okay, they have X amount of residents here, they're providing X amount of spaces, and then, okay, what are they doing here for those townhome type units? Okay, there's one in the garage, there's one in the driveway, and then there's, various areas identified for overflow, and, we're happy to quantify that.
I just had one question, if I can kind of sneak in for a minute. The existing house that's located near the southwest corner of the site, is that owned by James Riverview?
I don't believe so. I could be wrong. I don't know for a fact, but I don't think it is. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, I thought I saw that as well.
As it is, Jess, on the drawings.
And the only reason I'm bringing it up, certainly we would want to see buffering and such, but however, if it's rented out and, in the applicant, or because I think James Riverview was part of the applicant on this one, there's a little more leeway there, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I'll look into that. It's, there's potentially that could just be a notation area, but again, I don't know to say definitively one way or the other. So I'll review that. But regardless, of who owns it, will certainly provide that enhanced buffering that I was talking about.
Thank you.
So, Chris, just to close this out, we won't need to see a parking study.
I think we would like to see something, whether it's a study or a letter from Jess explaining why they're coming up with the count that they're coming up with. I'm okay with that.
Is there something that we need to approve, or can you handle that with staff?
I think we could probably handle it ourselves, but certainly I can share that with the board as well if there's any interest. But yeah, we can certainly handle that in how or administratively in a sense if the board wants us to.
Okay.
That may be a problem. Just because
Oh.
it's a specific condition of the special permit approval that the planning board approved the parking.
Could we make that a special condition?
You can make it a condition of the approval. I'm not saying you can't approve it.
Right.
But I think the planning board in some form or fashion has to approve it. If you look at the special permit approval, it says the reduced parking proposed by the developer as part of the concept plan shall be subject to review and approval by the planning board, all in accordance with section 295-34.5. And that, to me, that requires planning board.
Yeah, if I can weigh in here a little bit, when we went to the special use permit process, we had not identified the land bank parking area. What's typically done, or, I don't want to say typically, but what we've at least done on past projects in the town of Henrietta specifically is, we provide the amount of parking we need because that's the responsible way to do development. Overbuilding parking has, enhanced environmental impact for no good reason. So one route is we provide the parking that we need. It doesn't comply with the code. Then we go ask for a variance. And this is, special use permit conditions aside for a moment. The second route that we've done in the past is we provide the parking that we need, and that gap between what we need and what's required by code, we've, shown as land bank parking, and that's typical in many municipalities. And essentially, we're showing that we can meet the requirement, but we've identified certain areas that will not be constructed, but could theoretically, be constructed if they were needed. And, that's been our approach to the parking study. So I believe that's why the special use permit had that condition, was because we were showing that gap and not necessarily how we were going to address it. So between the time the special use permit was granted and we made our submission for site plan review, we incorporated the land bank parking to close that gap and, again, do something that we've done in the past. So I don't know that that helps or not, but that was the thought process.
So this is Dan Mistrella again, Jim. Sure. This is Dan Mistrella again, and it does help. You don't need a variance because the mixed use development site plan provisions in the code allow the planning board to vary the parking requirements. It just should be a condition of the approval that the planning board looks at and approves it. It's not going to hold you up at all, so long as they approve it.
And again, I'm more than happy to do that.
I think I'm all set on that last one.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. The chair will recognize Mr. List.
I have nothing, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Chair will recognize Mrs. Brill.
Thank you. Mr. Estrella, if you could help me with that verbiage based on the site plan allows the planning board to consider parking, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, the provisions in the code for site plan requirements for mixed uses, which this has been designated by the town board as a mixed use development, allows the planning board to vary the parking requirements elsewhere in the code if they are satisfied that the applicant has adequately justified the reduced parking. So that it would be a condition of approval that the planning board is satisfied with that. If the planning board's satisfied tonight, then fine. But if there's going to be something else submitted that delineates that, then, and you want to see it, you should see it as well and say that's okay. It could be, you could throw it on as a discussion item at some point if you wanted to, but it's up to you.
Dan, can we delegate that responsibility to the town staff? Or is it because of the special permit, we have to rule on it?
You know, my reading of what the special permit provision is that the planning board has to approve it. And, you know, I'm not trying to be overly stickler. I'm just saying that that's the way I read it. And if you're satisfied with what's already been presented, then you don't have to make it a condition. But I don't think delegating it to staff is the appropriate way to handle it.
Yeah, and I think that's right. If they couldn't meet the parking requirements based on the land banking, say they couldn't land bank those spaces, then I agree that it would probably have to come before the board again as far as, you know, their reasoning why they're using, you know, was it 2.2 spaces per unit or something like that. However, I think Jess made a valid point. Since they can meet the parking requirements on site, then they meet the requirements. So I don't think it really has to come back to the board. I guess, yeah.
I'm sorry, Chris, didn't you ask him for another plan for parking?
Well,
Or a letter? Yeah.
A letter or something?
certainly you know, curiosity gets the best of me sometimes. I certainly would like to see, you know, where they came up with that number. However, they do meet the requirements. So I think that's something I could work out with Jess. But I think as far as, you know, this coming back before the board, they certainly meet the requirements based on the land bank parking.
Thank you, Chris.
I would not disagree with what Chris just said. I'm okay with that.
You do not disagree?
I do not disagree with what he said. Since they're showing adequate parking, you're really approving the land banking aspect of it. So if the better explanation is for the Director of Engineering and Planning's edification, so be it.
I think what Dan is saying in a roundabout way that Chris is right. Doesn't happen very often, so I'll take that as a
First
win.
time for everything, isn't there?
Make sure that gets to the minutes, Patty. Yes. Patty, are you all set?
What I have, and please help me here, conditional approval, if we choose to go that route, it suggested that it's based on the fact that mixed use, easy for me to say, site plan allows for planning board to consider the parking, vary the parking requirement if we are satisfied they have adequately advised us based on the use and consider land banking some parking.
Yeah, or we don't, I don't think we even need to make it a condition. I mean, I guess it's up to the board, but I think because they meet the parking requirements with the land bank parking,
We can
I think. we
approve
can
as is, or
together. Yeah, you can approve the plans as is. Right.
Thank you.
thank
Yeah, I
you.
know it's kind of cumbersome. This is kind of first, with this overlay district, it does give the developer certain incentives, and one of them is in parking. If they didn't have the land bank space, then they could, if they could prove it, they could use a density of 2.2 instead of the 2.5 parking spaces per unit. They don't have to, because they can meet that requirement based on what it is.
So basically, they've got the spaces they need. They're just not paving the spaces they need, or they have.
Correct.
Yeah.
And even beyond that, land banking is encouraged by the
Yeah.
mixed use development code. So if you're happy with it and Chris is happy with it, I'm fine with it. You don't have to make it a condition.
Thank you. Mrs. Brill,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Yeah, and I like the idea of the land banking. You know, one of the things Jess mentioned is there's keep it environmentally friendly, no reason to create impervious surfaces when we don't have to, right?
Right.
Absolutely. Bear with me. Okay, a lot of my questions got checked off. Number 4, I just wanted to question, it says the proposed outdoor pools, plural, and I only see one. It looks like it's maybe a hot tub within a pool, but I just wanted to clarify that I'm not missing something.
Nope, you're correct.
So it's just pool.
Yes.
Thank you. That's all. And did we address the building mounted lights, Jess? I tried to go through this massive plan pack here to rediscover it, and forgive me if somebody mentioned it while I was taking some notes. Have we addressed building mounted lights, spill off and things like that?
Yeah, as we will be providing further details, including cut sheets on the building mounted lighting and the associated photometrics.
Thank you. And that is all I had. Everything else was addressed. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mrs. Brill. The chair will recognize Mr. Page.
Good to go last. Most of these are engineering. The thing that jumped out at me, of course, was the parking, and I'm not excited about the land banking parking being 3 football fields away, but if Chris feels that it's appropriate and wants to include them in the final decision, it's fine with me. Also, I'm sure that the fire marshal and Chris and his staff will come up with a solution about the 2 emergency egress or ingress for emergency purposes. There were a couple of things that I went to the stormwater prevention one and had an immediate headache after I read it. And then I went to and then I see the Stantec did provide the landscape guideline or the landscaping comments. And I'm assuming that you can address those, correct, Jeff?
Yeah, not at all. We've had a chance to review them and they're easily addressed.
Okay. Then I just had a couple things. Patty covered one of them with the pool thing. I couldn't find the 2 pools. There was a mention, Jeff, is there any sprinkler systems at all involved in this?
Yes, every one of the buildings will be fully sprinklered.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. I had a question. I'll find it here. Give me a second. Oh, it was number 11 in the town board's conditions. The developer should provide security as per section 295-34N of the code. I'm not asking a question. Can somebody help me with what that means? It's number 11 and the resolution 6-83 2021 special permit for the Lehigh mixed use development.
I'm gonna go out here on a limb because I don't have the code in front of me, but I'm gonna guess that's probably a letter of credit of some sort.
Yeah, so not security in the sense of on-site security, but I will mention, with 352 units, we'll have a robust on-site management team that will handle things like security and maintenance. I also interpreted that comment as being a security as it relates to letter of credit and things like erosion control, dedicated infrastructure, all of which are typical for a project like this and which we're very much accustomed to doing.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Page. Jess, thank you very much. I've just got one comment, and it deals with the second access route. And out of the 2 options that you suggested or thought that might be feasible, I personally like the one that would come out to East River Road there, the emergency access only. The other one, moving the 2 roads, I can see that would be helpful, but just from a personal perspective, I would like it to be separated and up at the other end of the development there, just for your edification there.
No, I appreciate that comment, Mr. Gruden. I think what we'll do is get, the town engineer, Chris, the county DOT, the fire marshal, and I will all get together and work through that. I looked at it, and to us in the project, it's kind of half dozen in one and 6 in the other, and we're happy to do whichever satisfies the, various stakeholders at the table. So
Yep, thank you. Yeah, I'm no engineer, obviously, but it just, I don't know, just for some reason that option appeals more to me than the other one. But if it's the other one, I certainly don't have a problem with that either. So thank you very much for a good presentation tonight. Anything from town staff? Any comments? Mr. Mistrella?
Two. First of all, that the security is a letter of credit. It's in
Okay.
29534.2N. So that's what that is addressing, is a letter of credit. And the other thing is, in the special permit, the town board directs that the developer shall provide any easements required by the planning board as identified during site plan review, including potential cross-access easement between parts of the property. Is that referring to if the property has to be subdivided, or are there actual easements, access easements identified in this plan?
There are access easements and utility easements that are identified in the plan. And they address the subdivision, standard access, emergency access, the water authority requested easements. There's easements required for the dedicated sanitary sewer and the pump station. But all in all, I think the main point is, we're happy to provide all of those and, are processing the documents currently.
Okay, so are there cross-access easements between parts of the property?
There would only be cross-access easements if the project was subdivided to accommodate the phasing. There's no adjacent parcel that would benefit from cross-access easements through our project.
Okay, so that can, if you have to subdivide, we would address it at that point in time.
Yeah, if we had to subdivide it, we'd put together an REA, which is a reciprocal easement agreement that addressed cross-access easements between the two parcels for utilities, access, and the like, if we had to do that. But again, nothing we haven't done before and pretty simple lift for us.
Yeah, and if I remember, Jess, the property to the south, the industrial piece, I think that is two properties. And if that ever does get developed, I think we would be looking for obviously reciprocal easements for that one unless it was re-subdivided.
Yep, understood. And hopefully we'll be back in front of this board soon with that portion of the property.
And almost said, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martin. Okay, the chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve application number 21-006 Lehigh Mixed Use Development Apartments.
Thank you, Mr. Page.
Second.
Mr. McIntyre has the second. Thank you. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed, say nay. The opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the motion carries. Congratulations, Jesse.
Thank you very much, and you guys have a good evening.
You too. Okay, next on the agenda, application number 21-007, Marketplace Senior Apartments for final site plan approval for a 150-unit senior apartment community on 3.04 acres located at 1100 Miracle Mile Drive in a commercial B1 zoned district with mixed-use redevelopment overlay district. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Have
I'm
you
Ryan.
introduce yourself, please.
Yep. I'm Ryan Destro from BME Associates. Here with me tonight is Ryan Brandt from Rochester Cornerstone Group and Joseph McNinch from SWBR, the project architect. Heather, if you could please put up the site rendering, that would be great.
Yes, 1 second.
Okay.
And Ryan, what was your last name
Destro, D-E-S-T-R-O.
and your last name?
B as in boy, R-A-N, B as in dog, C as in dog.
And while Heather's putting the site rendering up, as mentioned, we are here for site plan approval for the Marketplace Senior Apartments project. There we go. The proposal is for a 4-story, 155,000 square foot, 150 unit residential apartment, senior housing structure to be specific, with an overall building height of less than 50 feet. And it's part of the mixed use development area at the Marketplace Mall. The existing zoning for the Marketplace Mall is commercial B1, which is the underlying zoning district, and mixed use redevelopment area, MURA, which is the overlay district for the Marketplace Mall property. 2 special use permits were granted by the town board for this project in their March 24th, 2001 meeting. The first special permit was granted to allow the mixed use development at the Marketplace Mall within the MURA overlay district. And the second special use permit allows the Marketplace Senior Apartments project itself, which is the senior housing component specifically. At that meeting, the town board also issued a secret negative declaration for the project. Regarding the project site itself, it's a leased parcel area within the Marketplace Mall property that has an area of approximately 3 acres. It's located to the west of Sportsman's Warehouse, which you can see in the lower right portion of the screen that used to be Field and Stream. It's just to the south of Miracle Mile Drive and east of Red Creek. It's in the former location of the Marketplace Mall movie theater, and currently the parcel is a vacant paved parking area. Site amenities that we're proposing with this project include 93 parking spaces, which meet the code requirements for senior housing. Concrete sidewalks for pedestrian circulation are proposed both on-site as well as off-site, with a connection to the northeast to connect into the existing Marketplace Mall sidewalk system, which leads to the frontage along Dick's Sporting Goods. We're also proposing new landscaping and new lawn areas will be introduced on site. If you look at the existing conditions demo plan in the packet, you'll see that the existing pavement on the western portion of the project projects a good 30, 40 feet farther than we're showing. We're pulling it back for this project site and providing a greener or a greater green buffer between the project site and Red Creek as currently exists. The landscaping will consist of native trees, shrubs, and perennials and grasses are proposed on site. We're also proposing interior site lighting, which are more appropriate, pole height size 25 feet high, which differentiate from the existing mall parking lot light poles, which are much higher. An aerial apparatus access road for the fire department is provided on 2 full sides of this building. It's provided on the north side via the existing Miracle Mile Drive, and then also on the east side of the structure via the existing paved parking lot drive aisle. Within the site, we're also providing a gazebo, a dumpster enclosure, a maintenance shed for the senior housing structure, as well as bike racks are provided at both of the main building entrances. With regards to site utilities, public sanitary, sewer, and public water main currently exist on site for connection. And since the site was previously developed, the design does follow the New York State DEC design guidelines for redevelopment projects. The project, as I insinuated before, will reduce the existing impervious area condition. Currently, 2.7 acres of impervious area exist on site. Under the post-development condition, we're reducing it to 1.9 acres of impervious area for the project site for a reduction of 0.8 acres of impervious. Approximately 37% green space is provided on site. And as such, the water quantity and the water quality requirements of the New York State DEC and SPEDI's general permit guidelines have been met because we are reducing the impervious area from the existing condition by greater than 25%. Therefore, a post-construction stormwater management facility is not required with this project. The existing on-site drainage patterns, which convey runoff to the west towards Red Creek, will be maintained as part of this proposed development. The first floor of the senior housing structure has been set 2 feet above the floodplain, which is located on site for the property, similar to the Sportsman's Warehouse, as well as the mall primary structure itself. We did provide a full project SWIP to the town for review and approval. And I should point out, one of the nice things about this project is that not only does it create a benefit to the town of Henrietta by providing a senior housing component, which I believe is needed and wanted in the town, but it also provides future viability, long-term viability for the Marketplace Mall itself. We did appear before the Conservation Board at their May 4th meeting, and at that meeting, they did recommend approval of this project. We've also received comments from town staff. I've already had a conversation with Chris Martin, and we do not see any issues in addressing their comments. And like I said, myself or Ryan Brandt or Joseph McNinch from SWBR are available to answer any of your questions, but that sums up this presentation.
Thank you very much. Chair will recognize Mr. Liss.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, I'm really looking forward to this project. I think this is going to be a great addition to the town of Henrietta. Looking at the initial drawing, this drawing here, and I look at the gazebo. Is there a walkway to the gazebo area?
Yes.
I don't see it on the.
There is, and if you can see it on the screen, there is a gray sidewalk extension that will connect to the gazebo.
Is there anything around Red Creek at all in that area? Any kind of walking paths that you've incorporated?
No walking paths are proposed. We are trying to keep it as green as possible, maintain as much of a green buffer as possible. But it is creating a recreational or passive open space area for passive use.
And the access to the mall itself, is that in the, can you kind of describe that a little bit more? How you, or show me on the.
So we were providing 2 access points to the property. You have on the northwestern portion of the property, there is a connection to American Mile Drive. And there's also
Ryan, can you maybe grab one of the portable mics? We can't hear you online.
okay. We are providing 2 access points, one in the northeastern corner of the property. That will provide direct access, new direct access to Miracle Mile Drive. And then to the east of the building, in the northeastern corner, there is another existing curb cut into Miracle Mile Drive. So that will serve as the secondary access. And you can access the site through that parking area, and then the southeastern corner of the property will allow access to the site. So we are providing full 360-degree access to the project site.
Very good. Thank you. I look forward to it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Chair will recognize Mrs. Brill.
Thank you. Regarding general number 3,
Parking.
yeah, parking spaces appear to be incorrect and will need to be reviewed. Also, a parking variance, reduction variance may be required from the Board of Appeals. Can you address that?
Yes, and I did have a conversation with the town engineer earlier. Part of this lease agreement that Rochester Cornerstone Group will have with Wilmerite, there's language in the agreement which allows the parking area to the east of the project site to be accessed or to be utilized for the parking count for this property. We're 93 parking spaces are required. We're showing 83 interior to the leased parcel area, and only 10 would be required in the parking area to the east. We just left off that number 10 on the parking area to the east as part of our labeling system. So that was part of the confusion. We did look at the existing Field and Stream or Sportsman's Warehouse. That project was approved in 2012 or 2013. Their lease line only extends to 1 row of parking within that parking area. As part of their application that was approved, they counted the entire parking area as part of their parking count. And they were providing over 100 spaces over what was required for the development. So there is an additional 100 spaces that can be allocated for the Marketplace Senior Apartments project. Per code, we're only required to utilize 10 of them.
And who advised that you're able to utilize that?
So this is a ground lease area. We're not actually subdividing an area within the Marketplace Mall property. part of the lease agreement will allow access to the parking field to the east of the property, of the ground lease area, I should say, not the property.
May I ask, would those spaces have to be identified as parking for your project, or they would just 10 spots in that deck somewhere is good for you?
Correct, and all the ground lease parcels on the Marketplace Mall property have inter parking agreements between them. So it's not like if you were going to Dick's, you have to park in the Dick's park. You can park anywhere in the mall. So all of the lease parcel areas have a parking agreement in between them.
Thank you.
It's my recollection that that part of the Red Creek is, needs some maintenance. You guys plan on cleaning that up, or whose responsibility would that be? I remember it being really overgrown and having a lot of garbage in that area. Just curious about that, since the gazebo will be backing up to that area.
Correct. Part of the project will include removing the existing pavement in that area, which does approach the limits of the creek. We'll be pulling that back. Some of the scrub will be removed, some of the brush that will be removed. But at this point, we are not proposing any disturbance within the bank, the limits of the bank of the creek.
And the other two I had to do with building colors, materials, and truck turning radii.
I can address the truck turning radii first. We did utilize a truck turning template software where we ran the Henrietta template for the 100-foot quint aerial truck through the property. It does work. I'll provide that to the town engineer for review, as well as the fire chief. But as I said, we are providing 2 fire aerial apparatus fire access roads, which provide service to the complete northern side of the building as well as the complete eastern side of the building as part of this project. And then as far as building colors, we did provide a rendering as part of the application, and I'll turn it over to Ryan and Joseph to address color and building related topics.
Everyone, Ryan Brandt from Rochester's Cornerstone Group. Our architect, Joseph McNinch from S2BR has some samples here.
You'll have to forgive me. I'm a colorblind architect. So the colors were selected by, in conjunction with some members of our team and Rochester's Cornerstone Group. Do you have you do have the rendering? It's that bottom file. If you didn't mind throwing that up. So this is essentially what we would be proposing. The tower aspects of the building would be a fiber cement panel, similar to this product, a very resilient, durable product. And the major fields of color on this particular building will be a vinyl siding product, similar to these ones, a fairly standard spec item. Colors in these veins, fairly modern looking.
Looks very similar to the last one that came up before.
It does, yeah.
Same colors and everything.
Joe, would you mind passing those around?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. And we have the lighting on here. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Brill. Chair will recognize Mr. Page.
Thank you. There was a mention about there might be some parts that are going to be disturbed. It's an archaeological sensitive area. Has that been addressed?
Yes, the SHPO portion of this project has been addressed. We do have the SHPO no effect letter in place, and that is already included in the project SWIP that was provided to the town for review.
Thank you. I know you mentioned the 2 curb cuts, but when I heard curb cuts, I thought more about cars. I was more concerned with, could you share with me the pedestrian crosswalk plan that you have proposed for the people that will walk to the mall? That wasn't on the diagram.
If Heather, if you could please switch back to the site rendering. So in the northeastern corner of the property, there'll be a crosswalk there's a crosswalk shown across that entrance, And then there'll be a new sidewalk added in that green space area, which
Okay.
is a stormwater quality feature.
Okay.
But in the lawn area closer to the curb, we're providing a new sidewalk, and then it crosses to the north into the green space area directly on the other side of the road. And then it does cross again in the Dick's Sporting Goods entryway, I should say.
Maybe you could check with the owners of the property. Maybe you could put a sign, pedestrian crossing or something in the middle of the road. There's going to be a lot of construction trucks with the 7-story U of R building and stuff. I'm just concerned about the safety of the people walking, that's all.
Yeah, and the timing of the two projects, the URMC project is going to precede this project as far as the construction schedule, but we will work with the town and provide the necessary signage as required for the crosswalks.
Okay. There was a question about setback distances for this project. Has that already been discussed with the engineer? That it's number 5 under general?
Yeah, I can address that. So as I stated before, this project site is a ground lease area. It's not an official property line. So the property lines and the setbacks are related to the overall mall property.
Oh, okay.
Which on the external limits, and we're well beyond 80 feet from any property line of the overall mall property line.
Okay. The county had a comment as well about, will there be a backflow preventer at this site?
Yep, that will be provided under a separate application to the Health Department and Water Authority as the building plans progress. That will be supplied by the mechanical engineer, and that'll be provided to the town for review prior to building permit.
Okay. My only other comment is that the fire department connections were not indicated on any of the utility plans. So I'm sure that'll be taken care of.
Yep, we'll show that. Right now, the site plan is ahead of the mechanical design for this, but we'll add that prior to signatures.
Good project for the town and good project for the mall. Thank you. I'm all set.
Thank you, Mr. Page. Chair will recognize Mr. McIntyre.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Brian, the 2 special permits that you applied for this project had some conditions established. Has the project changed at all, or has anything changed that would jeopardize those conditions?
No, it hasn't.
Okay, on both of them?
Correct.
All right, all of my other concerns were addressed, so I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. Yeah, I just want to say that I like this project. You were doing a nice job with that corner of the mall parking lot, and you're bringing nature into that corner when you've got acres and acres of blacktop, and I think that's great. And as I looked at the plans this weekend, I was struck a little bit. It may be too late for this, but I wanted to at least mention it. Over on Highland Drive, there's an apartment complex that has kind of a water feature out in front. Rocks and some water coming down, and yeah, I think they can turn it off in the wintertime. But I thought, boy, how nice would that be here to bring, excuse me, another element of nature into your corner here for these seniors to look at every time they pull in. I'm not saying both entrances, but just whichever is designated as your main entrance. If that's something you might be able to consider, because you've got the grass, the trees, you've got the gazebo, you've got the creek back there. Just be another element that I think might enhance that project a little bit. And I don't know how much that would cost, but I just wanted to at least throw it out there and give you something to think about. But all in all, I concur with my colleagues here. This is a wonderful project for the town and for repurposing part of that space at the mall.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And are you referring to the one across from the Cracker Barrel?
Yes.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
a nice little.
What's that?
Island Place.
Island Place. Yes, thank you. It's just every time I drive by there and I sit, I look at that and say, that's nice. It just, it's kind of soothing, and yeah.
I do agree.
So, all right. Well, thank you. Mr. Mastrella, any comments from you, sir?
None, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Martin?
None for me either, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Now the chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve application number 21007.
Mr. McIntyre,
I second.
Mr. Liss. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. The opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Motion carries. So Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Say hello to your dad.
Sorry you had to wait so long.
Okay.
All right. Last item on the agenda is a discussion item. Wendy's Restaurant. Excuse me.
Sorry about that.
I'm good, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
So discussion item, Wendy's Restaurant. We are to discuss the proposed building elevations for renovations to the Wendy's Restaurant located at 566 Jefferson Road in the Industrial Zone District. And, 4747 West Henrietta Road. Commercial B1 Zone District. I didn't catch that going through the first time. I thought I was thinking just the one on West Henrietta Road. But you saw the drawings, you saw the renderings. Any comments, any concerns?
What do you mean by that? It is on West Henrietta Road.
Well, there's two. There's the one on Jefferson, across from the old IHOP. And then there's the one on West Henrietta.
Oh, okay. You
So-
thought it was the other one?
I didn't see the second one listed. I was
All
thinking in my mind, I was thinking the one next to the Burger King. They're updating to compete with Burger King
Yep.
and Taco Bell. So, yeah.
Have they gotten rid of outdoor seating on these two restaurants?
Pardon me?
Have they gotten rid of outdoor seating on these two restaurants?
They never had it.
Never had it?
West Henrietta Road never had outdoor
But
seating.
Jefferson had some,
Jefferson has it, West Henrietta doesn't.
no outdoor seating at all.
I'm Ken Bracker. I'm the architect for the project. I don't know if you have any specific questions, but it's pretty, I'll just spend a moment here. It's late at night already. In terms of the restaurant located on Jefferson Road, what we're proposing to do is to remove the awnings on the building, take the existing ephes or drive it, as some people refer to it, paint it different colors as shown on the rendering. The rendered elevations is submitted. The cultured stone on the building will remain as is. The present light sconces will be replaced with new light sconces. And where we presently got I call it a metal panel, we're going to paint that red. And it's as shown in the elevations here. In terms of the other location, what we have is at the front of the building. You'll be there in a second. Whoop, that's the same one. Thank you for doing this for me, the way you're able to flip through the various pictures.
Yeah. Ken, I don't know that I have the rendering for the West Henrietta Road one.
I sent it
No.
to you.
It's not opening for me on my side. I don't know if you have the ability to open it on your side. It came
Just
through as a
one
weird
second.
file type.
I have the file here. Can I email it to you again right now while we're talking, or what do I need?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have, we have it.
Let me take it a second to open up AutoCAD.
Now, what we don't have, what I don't have is anything for Jefferson.
Have both. Have both.
Got it. So it doesn't need to go through anything.
Do you have them there?
We have copies of it.
We have 'em.
Oh, can I just discuss the other location then, if you've got drawings of it there?
Yes.
Okay, that building, as you can see, it's presently got a mansard roof on 3 sides of the building. The 2 sides where we've got the 2 sides of the building, we're going to take the mansard, the metal panel, and we're going to paint it a very dark gray color and introduce 2 silver horizontal bands. At the front of the building, which faces West Henrietta Road, we're going to remove the metal panel and put on a red corrugated panel with a silver band top and bottom. The light sconces on that building, we're going to paint them a dark black color, dark gray. Pretty straightforward. It's what Wendy's is doing throughout the entire country as part of updating the appearance of their structures.
I think it looks good.
Okay.
When, Ken, when's the project to begin, if approved?
Well, we're going to certainly, we've submitted some documents for building permit already on one of the locations, and we'll submit maybe this week or early next week on the other, and then it will go ahead sometime either later this spring still or over the summer.
Yeah, great.
But it'll definitely be a 2021 project.
Yep.
Okay?
That's good.
Anyone on the board have a comment or concern? I think,
Very nice.
Martin, Mr. Mistrella?
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
No, it looks like we're all pleased with it, Ken.
Well, thank you very much. And you guys have a nice evening, okay?
Staying up late with us. Yeah, we
Out with
appreciate
us,
it.
Ken.
I'm glad I was at home rather than having to sit there. Okay. Enjoy the night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, Mr.
Bye-bye.
Martin, anything final this evening? From you,
One thing
and-
I will say, we do have one or two items for the June meeting.
Okay. And maybe York coming back?
Yeah, well, yeah, York may come back depending on how the meeting goes. And the other one, Chris, for the life of me, I can't remember, but I know Heather, we talked about it. Which one am I missing for the next planning board meeting?
BMW additions.
Thank you. So the BMW is putting an addition on the front of the building and then one also on the back.
Oh, okay.
Not too much site work, but obviously with the building elevations and the location of it being on Calkins Road, West Henrietta Road, we wanted the board to come in and, or
Yeah.
want them to come in to the board.
Yeah, kind of like what we did with Garber when they connected their two, buildings and all that.
Exactly.
Good. Okay, well,
Stay
motion to
tuned.
adjourn. Mr. Page,
Can you imagine somebody?
Mr. McIntyre, second. Excuse
Can
me.
you imagine somebody asking us to allow a $1.3 million, 100-foot long ladder truck, 75,000 pounds?
In your-
to drive a
Pulling around in your
driveway?
driveway.